Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Tonight, we're going to dive back into kind of the old basics, some more material design stuff. I kind of paused it for a little bit because when we first tried it, got stuff falling all over my desk. When we first tried doing some modernization on it, we ran into a bit of an issue because there was a bug in the initial release of Net 10. The good news is that has been fixed, and it looks like there is a PR getting it backported. So I sort of expect the next release of .NET 10 to have it fixed and us to be able to look at pushing the library there. There's not a huge rush to try to get the material design library to Net 10. If you're running Net 10 now, you can still use the library. It's just I had trouble being able to leverage the SDK because we have kind of a weird combination of internal attached properties, needing to multi-target with Net 8, and problems ensuing from that. So hopefully that gets resolved and backported, and we are off to the races, which would be cool. Sorry, it's been a long day for me. Just came from my company's Christmas party, walked in the door, sat down, and we're spinning up and ready to go. Okay, couple quick announcements. Um, there. Are there and there. So GitCon is coming up next week. So if you're watching the recording of this, I'm sorry, it's either streaming now or you probably missed it. The good news is the recordings are probably live on the site. So gitcon.com. I am once again going to plug shamelessly my own talk. So on day one, I am this ship smarter, not harder. Practical get cracking workflows. Just as a kind of a quick teaser, I think I hit every single AI feature inside of GKD, Get Cracking Desktop, in like 24 minutes. I think it's something like that. And this shows one of the ways, I go back and forth. Like on the stream, I do some AI stuff and then bounce back and forth. I use it quite a bit, especially when I'm trying to get a bunch of work done very quickly because it's easy to offload it. The problem is it doesn't work as well on stream because oftentimes I'm switching windows, bouncing around. I'm trying to figure out a good way to capture that information of kind of being able to give people a more holistic view because most of what I'm doing requires multiple screens going at the same time. And so I don't know a good way to show that my favorite workflow because it's kind of hard with the setup I've got going. But this is a awesome way if you are interested in doing it. I did the recompose commits on my day job earlier today, and it was I wish I could share it. Unfortunately, it's a private repo, but it was the quintessential example of exactly what it's meant to be used for. So, loved it. Anyway, free conference. You just have to sign up. And they are giving away a Switch and a remarkable paper, which is cool. So if you are at all interested, it will be a great talk there. Next thing I want to plug is the Spokane.net user group. Put the link in the chat. So I did a talk Tuesday night, 2 days ago now, December 2nd. Today is December 4th, for the next few hours, at least for me. Covering all of the kinds of things that are new in C# 14, .NET 10. I dove a little bit into some of the framework level stuff, some CLI stuff, kind of a little bit surface level on a lot of it. But if you are at all interested in what is new there, kind of some gotchas or migration tips, check it out. It is a great one. Okay, I think that's all of that. Let me just get some stuff shut down here. I did not have time to prep my. Boom. I had no time to prep my stuff, so we are going to rock and roll this. Okay, so we are going material design tonight, I believe is where we were going to start. And let's take a look because we have some open PRs. This one isn't going to go anywhere. This one was the dialogue bit here. I was kind of curious to start chiming down some of these issues. This one here in particular caught my attention. So Nikolai is another one of the maintainers. We have a maintainers chat that a bunch of us chat in. And this was one that came up of being able to go through and address. Partly because the tab control kind of sucks for this particular use case. It doesn't really give this nice, easy way of having this hover bit here. So I was thinking I might even take a run at this. This one feels like something that might be fun to do. So just to give, let me get my big head out of the way. So just to give a little background on this, the idea here is you have a tab control with more tabs that can reasonably fit on your horizontal space. Right? So you've got either a smaller window or just a lot of tabs. Both are possible. And the material design spec, which he has conveniently linked here, has this guy here where there's a certain region over on the edge where it is actually scrolling over to let you go back and forth. Now, I have a mouse button that allows me to have horizontal scroll on my mouse wheel. So when I hit my left and right scroll on my mouse, I can also move it that way as well. So that is a thing, but at least within this behavior, there's this certain area where you can click and effectively scroll it across. Izzy, welcome. Freezing Silio Clock, you are absolutely correct. It is freezing here right now. It is dumping snow at my current location, which is just lovely because I get to drive in it tomorrow morning. I personally enjoy it, but I don't enjoy the other drivers in it. That's always the fun part. So, but we are getting dumped on. So I think we're going to take a look at this tab control issue, or at least take a starting run at it to see where it gets going. Because this is kind of the behavior down here that we are looking for. I think, as Nikolai had screenshotted in here this bit, and I'm trying to remember where this is in the spec. In here somewhere. It's in, there it is, down here. So it's these 52, this 52 pixel area here for allowing that offset across. And so I think we're going to take a run at trying to get this a little bit closer and tweak our tab control. So grab everyone's favorite Get Kraken, because Get Kraken's awesome. And then Control Shift E launches my Visual Studio. And I've just, once again, I realize people can't see this because I've got 1 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew on me. Now, it's not full. You can obviously tell because of the green screen. Let's see. That's so unfair. We don't get snow near Christmas anymore. Maybe in March. I think it was about 20 last time it snowed here. Dang. Yeah, we go back and forth. We like around here. So if you know Bing Crosby's White Christmas, I am from the city where he wrote it, or where he was. So, Pacific Northwest. So we often can have a White Christmas, but it's by no means guaranteed. Like I think only about maybe half the time do we actually have a White Christmas. This year, it's looking real likely. We've been getting snowed on all week. It's still warm enough in the day that most of it melts off, but it's looking pretty likely. Looking pretty likely. Oh, one thing I'm going to show off here real quick in case people didn't notice, like bright colors around my screen, like lines and happiness, right? Like I've got this colorful stuff. So there is an extension I came across, and I will show it to you, that I've been absolutely in love with. Where is it? Huh? I have the extension. Why doesn't it show in my extensions list? Clearly, it's there and running. Let's see. We will rev that in a moment. Is it in a roaming? Huh. Wonder why it's not showing in my list. So if you go into the extensions and I believe just search color, it'll show right up and solution colors from Mads Christensen. I don't know why it is convinced it's not installed because I clearly have it running. And more importantly, if I click on my solution, I have this option down here for set solution color, right? So there, I will point out in the description here, there's a Visual Studio feature request, and it calls out that this is now kind of built in to Visual Studio, which is true, sort of. A portion of this is built in. So if you go and look at in your tools options underneath color, there is, and this actually applies to more than just the color stuff. But the key thing here is we now have this applies to up at the top for our options, where you can do current, or you can actually override the current user defaults by putting shared stuff into a particular directory, which is pretty cool, right? Like there's even a JSON backed file for a lot of these settings, very similar because you can see edit user settings as JSON. This is very similar to kind of how like VS Code settings work for people who are familiar with that. But it means that you can have a user profile that's say dark, and then in here we could set a different theme to be say spicy red or something of that nature, right? And if I go through and save this for my material design one, well, now it gets me back and has this overridden for here. The thing I'm not a huge fan of is I actually like the border color, and I couldn't find a setting, and maybe it's just hidden from me where I'm not able to find it. It doesn't show me the option for doing this same visual effect with the border color. I'm going to reset this back. Go back. The other thing that it doesn't give me, and I realize you guys can't see it, but on my taskbar, the taskbar icon also gets this little colored dot. And I can also change what that dot is by setting an icon. So there's a handful of these options in here that just don't exist inside the regular Visual Studio that I still kind of like the extension for. So if you are just wanting it so that you can differentiate different solution Visual Studios, that's fine. This works. The other thing that I'm not a huge fan of with the checking in settings at the repo level, which is good, is I have actually been using this a lot with Git work trees. So again, plug my talk for GitCon if you want to check it out. But I've been leveraging work trees so that I can have an AI agent working off in one spot while I work on another one and then bounce back and forth. Is there a debugging fuchsia theme? I mean, it's customizable, so you could make it. You absolutely could make it. Because the whole point is being able to see some difference between these ones. And I might have to check if you change the color theme, because a lot of Visual Studio's display stuff is per mode, whether you're in debugging or not. And I wonder if you're debugging and you change the theme, if that just changes the theme in debug. So I've been really liking this because when you have two Visual Studio instances that are targeting the same repo, probably at the same base commit, and one's an AI doing something and one's yours, it's real easy to get confused very quickly. And so I want two things that are at effectively the same repo commit, but where I can toggle different colors between them, right? And then I'll just show you. It's got a handful of fun options in here. So you can have like the title bar and taskbar icons and those types of things. And then you can choose whether you want the taskbar thumbnails in the main window only. The border settings, I think they only they didn't default to all the way around. I turned them all the way around, and I turned them down because I think the default was like 3. But it was like 3 and only the bottom. And I was like, I like it all the way around and make it thinner. So it gives a lot of nice extra little things there that just worth their prior. So for what it's worth, if you are leveraging it, solution colors, I am a little surprised. Curious what it's going to do if I... Yeah, because it's clearly installed and running. I'm just surprised that it's not showing up properly. Okay, anyway, all of that said, let's go play Tab Control Land. Let's go play in our Tab Control. So, this is where we sit, and let's just get our bearings real quick. The scrolling tab control template, because I believe we've got 2 of them here. Jordan, thank you for the sub. I appreciate it. Welcome. Good to see you. So the scrolling tab, I believe, roughly aligns, at least in terms of the spec, between these two, between the scrollable and fixed tabs. So I think all we're going to end up needing to do for the 52 is probably margin on the stack panel. We may end up doing padding. I don't know if it's going to make a difference considering the stack panel is directly inside the scroll viewer. You always have to keep an eye on where the scroll viewer is at, because if you pad or margin the wrong bit, you end up making your scroll bar not appear correctly. So just want to look at where this guy gets used. So tab control base, there's the template, and then we've got our header behavior for wrapping versus scrolling. And scrolling is the default, I believe, on this guy. Let's see. Has fill tab. Huh? Wait a minute. Header behavior. Header behavior. Where are you? Oh, there we are. Yeah, so default is scrolling. Okay, so let's launch this guy, and then we can probably just play around with him and dial right in. Dude, Jordan, thank you very much. That is amazing. I hope everyone enjoys the subs. Thank you very much. Very nice of you. I appreciate it. We aren't building. Horizontal scroll bar visit. Oh, I duplicated a line. That's just going to ping for a little bit. That is awesome. That is amazing. Okay. I think we launch now. Sorry, my thing just keeps pinging away with the sound. Okay. I realize I think I have my system audio off, so I think I'm the only one hearing those. So that is exciting. Okay. Check. Okay. And we're up. Okay, so let's take a look here. Okay, so let's go into our tabs. I will say, if you do go and watch the .NET user group video, yep, the channel is my mixer is always changing my channel levels. Yeah, no, I totally get it. Looks like you're gonna have lots of Mountain Dew this Christmas. Yes, that is 100% correct. I don't know that we have a good. Where do we not? There we go. So this is our scroll versus otherwise. So there's our test bed. This will work. Okay, so let's grab our old pal Snoop, because I think I want to just play with this and see what makes the most sense in here. Because the 2 things we need to do is we need to put in, well, I should say a few things we need to do. First is we need to put in the space and then make that space appropriately clickable, so that as you're going down the line, I want to duplicate this tab. Let's see, because if I go behavior here, where is the, at the very top? There we go. Because if I click here, it just moves me over and in. And so it always, and I think we've already got this up to the, um, yeah, channel is an audio channel for the notification. Yep, yep. Hopefully I get my usual lumps of coal. Izzy, we'll fix that for you, buddy. For those people who are interested, we are planning on doing more streams on the Enigma stuff as well. Izzy was teasing me with cool pictures again. So expect more of that if anybody was following around for that one. Okay, so we have in here. There's our tab items, centered header panel. There's our stack panel. I am a little surprised the scrolling one isn't going all the way across. That one concerns me. Yeah, Jordan. So the short version is this issue here. So WPF Material Design and XAML library. It's a theming library for desktop apps. Some people think it's heresy for me to do Google Material Design on a Windows desktop app. I say if it looks good, I don't care who designed it. But the tab control that we have on this scrolling one, you can see these two screenshots up at the top are from the spec of where there's this extra 52 pixels of clickable space to scroll your tabs left and right. Whereas ours is this third one down at the bottom where we don't have that. We've got a little bit of, if the tab's not all the way visible, if you click, the tab control will force it into view, but that's not really us doing it. That's just kind of us taking some default behavior and abusing it. So our goal is to get this guy plugged into place. And so this 52 here is step one of figuring out where that needs to go. So that would be the first one. I think is so, and that's so inside of here. Snoop is a app for being able to inspect what's called the visual tree of a WPF app. For web developers, think of this as your DOM of being able to get in and see, manipulate it. There's built-in tools to Visual Studio, but man, Snoop is significantly more powerful. Let's see. Just got to figure out a rather complicated bit of the schematic to allow me to program the rotors as well as use them. Then I need to fix the differential pairs for Ethernet and HDMI. You make it sound easy, Izzy. You make it sound too easy. Okay, so I want to go all the way up here. I want to find the tab control. The tab control, so this is being cut off because this is the bounds of the tab control. So, and the only reason that's the case is because this teeny little icon that's not really visible right here, this is my show me the XAML control that wraps most things in the demo app, because its purpose in life is just to give you this so that you can see and leverage all of this in here. At some point we should look and see about what I need to do to style the background of this so that it actually floats through nice. To have it match the rest of the app. That white is a little jarring on a dark theme. Okay, so that's fine there. I'm kind of curious to go up a little higher to this guy. Why do we have? Why is he centered? Horizontal alignment stretch. So what are you inside of? You're inside of a vertical stack panel. Well, then why don't you get bigger? You have some like massive margin or something? No. How about a width? Ah, it's got a fixed width. Let's see. If we reset that to nan, Mm. Ah, because without a fixed width, it goes right off the edge because the top thing is inside of a scroll viewer, which allows it to horizontally scroll as big as it wants. Got it. Yeah, Izzy, I might have it sorted by Sunday. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we may play around. Oh, and I have format my XAML. Thank you. Um, so another extension that's worth knowing about for anybody who might be working in XAML land is XAML Styler. This is absolutely gold. I do not know why Microsoft hasn't effectively poached this and put it in the box yet. But this is, in my opinion, almost required if you're doing any amount of XAML work, just because the built-in formatter doesn't handle things like your attributes on separate lines. You saw how all of my stuff was offset until I formatted it. That's just because that's how the default formatter handles it, which is kind of yucky. So XAML Styler, highly recommended for all XAML related work. Okay, so put that guy back to the 720. I was going to play around with trying to fix that, but I realized that's going to be probably more trouble than it's worth at the moment. Let's focus in on getting the tab control down here. So the header zone is there, and then there's our scroll viewer. And I think I'm somewhat tempted. How do we style this scroll viewer? Because this must have a style set on it. Does it not? Scroll viewer. I'm just trying to see why okay, so these two here are the reason why the scroll bars aren't showing up. So I was somewhat tempted to fix this by just restyling the scroll bars that are on the scroll viewer and make them transparency buttons that you can click on, but maybe that's because I don't want that because the behavior on the click is not a fixed scroll. It's based upon, and it's actually not even an area. So like it's got this padding here on the end, which we can get by just slapping some padding inside of our area. And then it's just making sure that when a tab is offset and we click, we bring it in that extra distance. So if all we do, we come in here, if we just grab our grid or even our stack panel, and we just on our stack panel put in a margin of 52, 0, which will be 52 on both left and right. And then we scroll this guy over. We have this blank space now here. I'm wondering if it would be better to do as padding. I don't know if it's going to make a difference. So let's do padding here and let's find out. Nope, that's the wrong one. I feel like I need to sneeze. Let's see. Latent response. This is a response to your comment regarding the two different product frameworks together. Let's see. It's crazy to me how tribalism goes down such a micro level. Keep bootlicking dudes. Heresy, no place in the art. Coding is just as sophisticated as an art as any at its core, and the artist's only allegiance to the final product and the tool has best achieved it. That is very eloquently said. Yeah, your brand loyalty doesn't make code pure or impure. The goal is to build something functional, elegant, and useful. Yeah, if the Google library is the right brush for the selection of Microsoft Canvas, that's the choice the professional artist makes. The only real heresy is intentionally choosing an inferior tool out of spite, dogma. P.S. I'm not usually on mobile, hanging with a wife, wanted to check in. Hey, no, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, no, that was very eloquently said. Yeah, and yeah, like I said, I personally think that the Google material design is quite popular even among like web frameworks. It's very, very common to have material design as an option in pretty much every major web front end framework as well. And that's kind of my thought is there's kind of getting this blurry line between desktop and web apps anyway. And if your users are already familiar with it and it feels familiar, use it. Right? Like even in my day job, we do a lot of Vue front ends, and material design is our default setting of what we go to until there's some reason to pick something else. Because it's simple. Users don't struggle with it that much. Like assuming you actually follow the guidelines, right? Like a UI framework is only as the guidelines are only as good if they get followed, and quite often they don't. Oh, stack panel doesn't have padding. That's why I can't do it. Okay. I think we just throw the margin in. There's a difference, aren't they all just web-based anyway? Izzy. There is a difference, and WPF is awesome. Fight what anyone will tell you. Okay, so let's start with this. We're just going to slap in a margin of 52.0 right out the gate just to give us that amount of space. And then when I select a tab, the key thing here is when they bring the tab into focus, it brings it in, but then also offsets it that 52, right? So the edge of the tab comes in and is much more visible. Now I'm curious, what does it do when I shrink my window? How does it handle that? If I do this where there's not, oh, interesting. If I try to, because I'm trying to shrink it to where it doesn't have space to go anywhere, and their stuff just scales too nicely. Well, but I think the short version is like even there where I had it, right? Tab 5 is here, and when I click it, it offsets in that 52 pixels on the edge. So when switching tabs, we want to make sure that it not only comes in to view, but comes in with that extra 52 margin. I'm trying to decide how to go through and do that because I can watch for the header changing. Um, yeah, isn't the offset there to ensure the user can click the next tab over? Yeah, no, absolutely. That's exactly what it's for. And the problem is on ours, when I click here, it brings header 5 into view, but doesn't bring it in with that extra 52 on the edge. So I can't see that there's a header 6, right? Now I know there's a header 6 because it goes out to 20. So it's like, and the thing is I don't think we did anything for this behavior at all. And I think I think what we're going to end up needing to do is I'm just trying to decide where I need to actually catch this change because I've got the tab control events that I can wire into. And this is one of the hard parts because I don't own tab control. That's just a built-in WPF control, right? And so tab assist bubble is items host. I remember what this one is for. Oh, bindable is items host. Right. Okay, so because this just gives us a way of getting those ones in just fine. But I need some way of knowing when the tab is changing and or when the scroll viewer is moving so that it can easily offset appropriately. Because I do know here and here part of me is tempted to make it configurable, and then part of me is realizing I probably don't need it configurable. I probably can just catch it inside of here. So let's just go in here real quick. Um, because this is where we're actually registering up the scroll viewer hooks. Just good. Like, this is kind of what we want. Um, yeah, so you're working at it backwards. Yeah, so no, that is a good question. So I will attempt to explain because hopefully I will figure it out by rubber ducking this. Okay, the so I think I'm gonna operate under the assumption that the problem is somewhat apparent comparing our implementation to the material design one. Is when I click on the tabs here, because these tabs are fully contained within the scroll view window, no scrolling is happening. However, the desired behavior that we're shooting for is, even though tab 10 is fully contained within the scroll view, when I click it, it shifts in so that there's always this extra gap so that the user knows, am I out of tabs or are there more tabs further over? That's the goal of what we're aiming at, is to be able to have that, right? So there's something there. And then same with tab 5, right? It's fully contained in the scroll view. So on ours, same with my header 3 here. When I click header 3, it just selects header 3. But here, when I select tab 5, it shifts over. So the question I am trying to answer is how to properly implement this. Because the simplest thing, I think, is when you get a hold of the scroll viewer instance, I can just move the scroll bar over 52 pixels. That's not hard, right? But the the question is knowing that you need to move the scroll viewer over, because the scroll viewer almost needs to watch the tab control to know when a new tab is selected, I think. And then when a new tab is selected, evaluate if it needs to adjust the scrolling as well. The other thing that the material design demo doesn't cover, because it really can't, is we support data binding. So in theory, the selected tab can change by more than just mouse interaction. And I don't think, yeah, so they do have keyboard support at least. So as even without selecting it, just moving the focus to it via the keyboard also causes the same shift. Which would be a very interesting one for us to go through and do, because we don't really have that level of interaction yet either. But what we do have, or what I should say the tab control has by default, is the ability for somebody to bind to, say, the selected index, which would be the index of the tab that is selected, to their view model. And so the tab change could come from not a UI interaction, which is why I think I need to watch for because the tab control has an event I can watch to know when it shifts to a new tab. And then if I give that information to the scroll viewer and I know that it's 52, I can just say, okay, which tab is selected? Does it have at least 52 pixels on either edge? And if not, shift it so that it does. Right? Because I think that's the premise, is if it has less than 52 inches on either its left or right, move it so that it has the appropriate margin. I think that's where it needs to go. The hard part here is this scroll viewer assist class. So if I was just building this in an app, I wouldn't be thinking. I would just do an attached property or behavior, call it a day, and I would be done. But because this is a library, I have to be mildly more cautious, because on one hand, I want to just throw an internal property on the scroll viewer assist and call it a day. The thing that I don't like about that is whenever we do an internal property, occasionally, even though we try to make this library extendable, people will come up with use cases that this library just doesn't support. And usually my answer in those cases is, copy the template into your own project, and then tweak whatever you want. The problem is if my template is using an internal member, then the person has to copy not just the template, but also all the internal stuff as well into their project, which gets to be even more yucky. Let's see. So you're thinking instead of an on-key press to incrementally select a tab, the focus switches to a tab based on the index of the tab being called, like being called directly. No, Jordan, you're making perfect sense. But yeah, so the issue that I see is I need to pay attention to the tab. I think the tab control, because it knows when the selected tab is changing. And because I know that there's at least 3 different ways that that selected tab can change, whether it be a mouse click or a keyboard event or something from the code behind triggering it, I think I have to watch it. Oh, I missed a follow. Oh, I startup engineer. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So that's kind of where I'm thinking, and then the question is where to put the code in particular, because I don't own TabControl. That's not my class. I don't own Scroll Viewer. That's not my class. An attached property makes the most sense. I can write a behavior. A behavior might be the easiest. Let's see. Perhaps we can manually bring the tab adjacent to the currently selected tab into view. Ah, I see. Because the Scroll Viewer has the bring into view function, just grab the one off screen of it. I think the only thing I have there is I still have the problem of I have to know before or after. And then I think we also have to handle the case where the tab header is large and the viewport is too small to support the tab header plus the 52 on both sides. Right? Because if the tab's width plus 104 is bigger than the scroll viewer's width, we're not like, I think what we do is we just make sure the tab's visible and call it a day and go, there isn't really enough space. Like, and the Google website conveniently dodges that by being really hyper scalable. And I can't get it small enough. Like, I can't actually get their DOM small enough to get into that case because of how big these ones are. Actually, you know what? I wonder if I can go the other direction. Hang on. What if I just make the tab really big? What if I just go in here? Where is your, how are you configured? Where's your text? I want to add a bunch of text. There we go. So we're going to make tab 4 too big to fit in the viewport, and I want to see what it does. Nope, stop it. Let me type. Paste, paste. Okay, so tab 4 is now way too big. Interesting. So it knows whether it's coming to that tab by going forward or back, and then it adjusts accordingly. So it knows if I go here that I was scrolling forward, so it's the right edge that matters. And here it knows that I'm coming backwards, so it's the left edge that it exposes. Okay, so when it's too big to fit, it still gives you 52 pixels based upon which direction you're heading. So I think what I want to do is write a behavior, put it in my internals namespace so that people understand that it is not for public consumption, but then still make it public. I think that's what we're going to do. I think that's the cleanest approach, and we're going to go that way until it doesn't work. Okay, so tab control, header, scroll behavior, something of that nature, right? We're going to go that direction. Okay, so we're going to go there, we're going to go there, we're going to go behave yours. What did I do wrong? And then I have to decide, am I attaching this behavior to the tab control or to the scroll view? I think I attach it to the scroll viewer. I think is the game plan, and then I will feed it the tab control. Yeah. Let's see. Izzy, ooh, I just noticed I'm working from the garage next week. Could possibly join stream live. Sadly, no new laptop yet, so camera may still think I'm ugly. That'd be cool, Izzy. I can see what next. Check my schedule for next before I commit. Put my foot all the way in my mouth. Ooh, next week is the 11th. Um, follow my Discord for anybody who's interested. I may cancel it on the 11th. We've got a family event that evening, and I am potentially canceling. So I don't know that I will be actually home in time to stream. So let's see here. So the nice part about behaviors um, is they are a dependency object, which means they can have bindable properties, which is what we are going for. So we can do, was it prop DP? Yeah, and then we're going to go tab control, tab roll. There, that gets me to there. That gets me to there. Default behavior of null. Get rid of all the worthless comments. There we go. Okay, so now we can get ourselves into here. Expression body, use expression body. Shut up. For people who haven't seen it, I'm really excited for the new field keyword in C# 14. It is going to be awesome when I can finally upgrade this library to use it. So as soon as that one bug merges, I assume it'll be 10.0.200 that it makes it into, but I don't know. So once that happens, this library is going to be using net10 support right in. Okay, so I think, well, I don't really care about unattached. Just means I'll be up at 5 a.m. watching paint dry instead. Well, Izzy, I'm glad your bar for entertainment is so low that you're willing to watch me. I appreciate it. Let's see. On tab control changed. So we're going to go ahead and do that and implement with Copilot. No, I'm sorry, Copilot. I know you really want to help, but no, we are not doing that. So let's see. Var behavior gets, and we can hard cast this because we own this whole thing. So not really a large opportunity for any failure here. And then we are going to, if e.new value is, let's see, new tab control. Actually, we should probably do the old one first so that we unregister. If e.old value is tab control, old tab control, and then this is where we're going to be the new tab control, and I believe it's the selected index changed, something of that nature. At most, you're entertaining. Jordan, I appreciate that. I try to be mildly entertaining. I'm told that I am. I just kind of do it. I've had people ask me, how do you do it? It's like, well, I don't know that I have a lot of advice because I haven't really consciously thought through it. The one thing I will note that I'm trying to remember, might have been a TED talk I'd listened to at one point. There was one that there was some presentation I listened to at one point, and the presenter was talking about effectively how to give an engaging presentation. And one of the bits of advice that stuck in my head was the idea of telling a story. Of even if it's the most boring thing in the world, you just tell a story, and that much is often what people latch onto and agree with. So yeah, I don't have a low bar at all, just a very limited scope of what interests me, and at the time I can be awake without getting less than 3 hours of sleep. That's very easy. I was just giving you credit. Okay, so selection changed, I believe, is the name of what we're after. So on tab changed. The key thing here is we can do this, and we can do new tab control dot on tab changed. Or no, I need behavior. The whole reason I grabbed the behavior guy in the first place is so that I could get a hold of him. And then we need to go old tab control, and then we need to unregister the event. Now, it's fairly unlikely we're ever going to hit this where we change values. Like, the odds are this is going to change once. It's going to go from null to not null, and then that's going to be the end of it. But at least now we have an event, and we know when the tab changes. And let's see, because this is selection change. I'm fairly confident this is what fires. Maybe we should just look. What is the event that fires when I toggle tabs? If I go events, and I clear them out, and I go click, click. That's only showing me mouse events. Let me go into here, get rid of the command manager. We'll get rid of the mouse. I'm really tempted to, like, I like this reset to default settings, but I also want, like, clear all because I only want the following. Let's see. The selection changed is what we were about to watch, I believe, right? Yeah, selection change. So is selection change the right event? Bring, bring, bring. Okay. The selection change does appropriately fire when we change tabs. Okay. I thought that was going to be it. And then I think we will probably never. So selection change is actually coming from TabControl's base class, not from the TabControl itself. So I think the added items is probably. I think we can just. It's almost assuredly going to be 1. Is what the other drawback with. So WPF, this is an area where it starts to show its age, because you'll note this is iList, but they have like list of T inside of here. The reason for this is WPF was released in the same version of .NET that generics were added. And so when they were building WPF, generics didn't exist. And unfortunately, changing this would be a breaking change. And so we've got this weird back and forth bit where WPF, like, there is so much code out there. I don't know that they could make a very big breaking API change to WPF and expect any level of adoption. There's just too many apps out there. Even if it was a good breaking change, I don't think they would add it. I think they would be looking to add a new event or something else that's a net new thing that wouldn't break existing code, because there's no way that they could break anything. Let's see. That's kind of why I like coding. I pretty much just I'm just trying to tell a story with my code. Although some of my code is still unreadable even by AI. Yeah, I did say it was an interesting story. At the holiday party that I was at tonight, my colleague, who was effectively emceeing it, despite him thinking that he's not a very good MC, he's great. He went through and actually, we're in the middle of a gift exchange, and he's just trying to burn some time waiting for the next person to get up there. And so he goes and tells this whole story, and it's a very boring story. He's like, I didn't say it was an interesting story. I just said I was going to tell a story. But yet he held everyone's attention, despite the story was effectively, I had a cutting board, my wife didn't like it, we got rid of the cutting board. That was the story. Like, it was not interesting. It's like, okay. But yet, it just works, right? Like, some people, that charismatic thing works. Okay, so if new items or added items dot count greater than 0, right? We're just gonna then var new tab gets dot added items dot added items count -1, because we can't do, like, I realize we could do some link stuff and do a cast and that kind of jazz. Isn't that what WinUI 3 was supposed to be? An update XAML-based UI framework to replace WPF? Yep. That's also what WinUI 2 was supposed to be. That's also what UWP was supposed to be, which is why I haven't held my breath. Because Microsoft has tried multiple times to release an update to WPF where they make it better, right? And to their credit, like that's like this kind of the weird catch-22 because WPF engineers are always like, "Oh, we want the cool new stuff. Microsoft, give us the new stuff." And they go, "Okay, here's a new UI framework," and everybody goes, "No, we don't like that." Like, there is a uh, weird position to be in there. Um, like everybody wants the newer XAML stuff, but yeah, it was absolutely supposed to be that. And each time, like with UWP, WinUI 2, WinUI 3, each time I think Microsoft took learnings and did better the next time around. The hard part that they are fighting is the inertia that WPF already has. And it's kind of the problem where there's this massive ecosystem around WPF. And because it's been so stable for so long and there's this massive ecosystem, you can go out to any of the major control providers and get a WPF control library. There's tons of them out there. There's lots of open source ones, like this material design one, that are out there, that are good, that have been around for a while. So so every new one that they introduce that has these different things that people would have to target, because people always ask me, "Oh, can you just port your library over to WinUI 3?" It's like, you don't seem to understand how much work that would be. That's a massive undertaking. And so I've been very hesitant to pull the trigger on it because I know how big it is. It's huge. And so it's like, well, everybody wants a better one, and I think WinUI 3 may at some point get to the level where I stop using WPF and start using exclusively WinUI 3. It's not there yet. Avalonia is actually a lot closer at stealing my WPF love because like Avalonia is an updated XAML framework as well, and it feels the most like I feel the most at home in it. Like some of the other XAML based ones, like there's enough differences. I'm like, something doesn't quite feel right. Like Avalonia is really close. With the big one that always trips me up is the subtle difference between like how styles and triggers work. Like it's like not there's nothing wrong with it. It just works differently, and so I have to change my thinking on it. So yeah, surely that's just a weekend and a fridge full of Mountain Dew. Yeah, that's all it takes to port the library. It's just a weekend. I wish. I wish. Even with AI helping now, I don't even know if I could do it. In a weekend, I mean, I could port it to anything I had enough time for. The question is, do I have the time and energy for it? Okay, so once we get the new tab, the question then is doing the scrolling. And so I think the first question to then decide is where did we come from? Because we need to know if the new item, because do we have indexes instead of items? No, we don't. We only have the items. I'm mildly disappointed in that because I know what that means. I mean, so like removed items. Um, let's see. Uh, let's see. Let's see. Moving forward. Actually, let's just leave some comments because future Kevin is not going to remember what he was thinking. Uh, first we detect if we are moving forward or backward through the tabs. We are moving forward. We leave the padding on the right. If we are moving backward, we leave the padding on the left. Okay. That gets me to there, and I am not even going to try to think about left to right, right to left base properties in WPF. That is not on my radar yet. Okay, so moving forward is going to be, and if we didn't have a prior selection, which I think will be the case, like tab controls default to their first tab being selected, but it's not always the first tab because of data binding. The data binding could set the selected index before the thing is loaded, so it could start on a different tab. And I think in any of those cases, we will get a tab change event where the e.removed items will be an empty collection. We assume we are moving forward. Okay, so we're just going to call that out. Right, so if moving forward gets e dot removed items dot count equals 0, or e dot, well, let's see. Put that here. Bool is moving forward. I think I just want to do this. I'm going to just put it down here so that I can do it in a local function. That way, just to separate this out. So if we didn't have one, return true. All right, so we're going to do this. We're going to move this comment down to here and do that. And then we're just going to do is moving forward there. Well, done. Okay, and then bring false. So the other case where we're moving forward is where the old item has a lower index than us. So we need to find var previous tab gets e dot removed items sub 0, which we know is now safe because we know count isn't equal to 0, and we know count is neither negative because counts never go negative, means it's a positive number, which means 0 is available. Morning, JC. Welcome, welcome. Catch you up real quick. It's this issue here is the one that we're looking to tackle. Tab controls and trying to figure out how to appropriately scroll our tab header so that we actually conform to the material design spec as we were supposed to. Okay, so this one here, I am going to need the tab control itself. So tab control. No, I've got it right here. No point. There's no point being fancy, right? So we'll do tab control of the sender. Should be right there. Okay, so I think I need to do tab control item. Because I believe the can I just go after items? Or do I have to do items? I might, yeah. I might have to go to the container generator. I think I have to go here. Index from container. I think I have to do this. What does your red-green test look like currently? Sorry, I'm blanking, JC. Is that referring to a real test or the fact that I should have had a test written ahead of time? Because I don't currently have a test written for this, only because it's a behavior, and behaviors are painful, and I'd have to write a XAML test. Or a XAML test. That does it. Test-driven design. Yeah. No, I currently do not have a test written. Now you've got me thinking if I should pause and see about spinning one, because I probably trying to think if I could reasonably do it. Let me think on that one, because I think I could. I'm just trying to think of how I would go about setting one up. Right now, we're just playing in the demo app, and this is a new behavior for it. Because I think this is gonna. Well, shoot. This is my problem. It's because I believe these items, in the case of a data bound collection, will be the data bound item, and in the case of the let me look. We have the event here. Does this doesn't give me the event args, does it? Does not. So that's the other problem, is it does not give me the event args. Um, I think we can. So in the interest of items, I think I can just index of the item. Um, if let's see, index of is var index, and let's see, and in previous tab index. Just trying to think of the easiest way to do this. I think what I'm going to do, because I'm probably going to end up having to do this, int get item index. I think this is what we're going to end up having to do, is just feed it in. Because I have a feeling in the data bound case with virtualization, I'm going to have to go through the container generator to be able to pull it back. Let's see. Does XAML test see partial items? Tab F to tab 5. Yeah, yes. The answer is yes. The thing that I'm hesitating on, of where I will say kind of, is when you have a scroll viewer at play. If we ignore virtualization and just assume that, full visual tree is populated, when you have a scroll viewer like what we have here, like if it's not obvious, you can kind of see these red lines going top and bottom, but you don't see the left and right. And that's because there's more content left and right. And so the thing that we're actually selected on is wider than what we have space here. So if I were to say grab XAML test and go after header 6 and then try to tell it to click, well, it's going to end up clicking right here, right? Like it doesn't have a concept of like what a lot of UI frameworks have, where it's scroll into view and then click on it. It just goes, well, the coordinates are here, I click there. And so there's a little bit of, does it see? Yes. Does it see accurately? Not really. The other thing XAML test doesn't take into account is if you have transforms applied to your items. It does not account for transforms. It just takes whatever um, the point is that WPF gives back to the item and says, here's the point, and it converts it to screen coordinates and then moves there to interact with it. If you've got a transform on it that has, shifted it off to the side, well, it's going to miss. So at one point in time, I tried to handle them, and then I realized the other problem with attempting to handle transforms is transforms are often used for animations. And like, say you animate a box moving from left to right on your screen. That's great, but if I'm trying to read your transform to then go and move the mouse to click on it, by the time I read your transform, move the mouse, and execute the click, I'm probably acting on stale data. Tab controls are not virtualized. I believe you are correct, though I don't know that we. So not on our template. They absolutely can be. We've got a virtualizing stack panel here that allows them to be virtualized. You may be correct on the default WPF one. I'm not entirely sure if, and I will also point out, even though we're virtualizing it, this is probably one of the few items where we probably don't need to virtual. Like, I don't doubt as soon as I take it out, somebody's going to scream because they've got an app that has a massive number of tabs. But the vast majority of the time, I think if you've got too many tabs, like even some of my colleagues or my boss who are insane with their browser tabs, where they're the itty bitty little slivers, right? Like even when they're itty bitty little slivers, they still only have like 50, 60 of them, which practically speaking is not that big of a number, right? Most of the time when you have virtualized collections in WPF, it's because you've got things that are several orders of magnitude bigger, like thousands of items, tens of thousands of items. And it's like, yeah, that's bad, right? Like, yeah, it saves us a bit in some of those cases. And more importantly, if you shove it into the uniform grid, you've given that up as well. This is also something that I would kind of love to kill off and make a separate template so we don't have both the uniform grid and the stack panel in the same place. Like I have this desire at some point to build the equivalent of source generators that's the C# compiler has, but for XAML. Because I want effectively a XAML templating library. And like I've done a couple small proof of concepts where I get it up and working, and that's not terribly difficult to do. It's just there's all the, like templating engines are hard to get well, right? And even pulling in like an existing one, like handlebars or similar, gives you the templating syntax, but then it's like, well, how does that plug into my IDE experience? And can I make it play nice in Visual Studio? Like it spirals real quick, because I would love to get to the point where we have better stuff here. Because we do have one kind of XAML source generator already in the project-ish. This resource generation project, it generates out a bunch of brushes and whatnot, and it does generate XAML files. But this is a little CLI app that just manually runs and dumps out like all of our theming resource dictionaries, and it's doing it with string concatenation. Like, it's not fancy, right? Like, there's a bunch of stuff here, but it's really just string concatenation building out all of these, because I got sick and tired of trying to manage them all. So I was like, you know what? Little CLI app. We're after the races. Okay. Close you. Lost my thing. So get item index, because I think what I'm going to end up doing, end up doing this. So we're gonna just return this for the moment. So let's see. Previous index, get item index, because this then makes the code this makes the code simple and easy to write. Right? Let's see here, and then we do next indexed, and we're gonna do we'll just assume that this is a private function that we can get away with this. And we want the last item added. In reality, I know I'm being a little bit pedantic, going either the 0th or the last index. Actually, why am I doing this the hard way? Can't I do this now? Do I? I don't have a problem with range operators, do I? Stop debugging. I'm only hesitating, questioning if I have range operators, because I don't know. The range operator in .NET requires access to the range class, which is added in the BCL in net 8, 7, somewhere in that range. And so even though you can get access to the language feature by turning your lang version up, you may not have access. The lang feature may then try to reference a BCL thing that you don't have access to. But apparently I've either shimmed it or otherwise, because that compiled. I'm just surprised 462 compiled. I must have a shim in place for that to work. I'm just surprised that it does. Okay, so and then this is just going to be a simple of return next index greater than previous index. There we go. Okay, so if we are moving forward, actually, you know what? Let's move this up here. All right, if we are moving forward, we want to put the padding on the right. So this, why? Oh, it's not this. It's going to be attached. Wait, what is the associated object? That's what I'm looking for. Associated object and then scroll. So the other question I have is at the point we get this event fired, has it already done its default scroll or not? Um, bring into view new item. I think we do that. Oh, so this is actually just going to be, it's a tab item. I can do that. How do I know? How do I know if I can? Because I'd like to just call bring into view, and then so what I'd really like to write is something like this, right? And then uh, horizontal offset plus equals 52, right? Is I think what I want. Um, you have to do the scroll function to do it. So scroll to horizontal offset. Um, associated object, horizontal offset, and then I guess we can do this and then go if moving forward, it's going to be let's see, we want if we're moving forward, we want the padding on the right, so we move our thing backwards 52, otherwise forwards 52. Then we just need to parens this so that it evaluates the expression properly. There. That's what I think I want to write. But I don't know if it's already done the scrolling at the point the tab change occurs. I suspect the answer is it hasn't, but I don't know. So what we're going to do is we're going to comment this, and then we're going to try it, and we're going to see what happens. Let's see here. So we need to be on here. Let's see. What is it? Interactivity, behaviors, something, 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 something. Wait a minute. Copilot, were you about to be helpful? Yeah, it's going to be something of this nature. And then, yeah, fix it, Copilot. Who can find it first? Why do I have a feeling I will? Let's see. Find all references. Nope, that didn't. This is one of the situations where find all references is going to be garbage. That's what I need there. Thank you. Yeah, I want that effectively. And then we go back to here. Did you get it right? Oh, you want to do it as I. What did you do here? Well, screw it. Let's put you in place. The Copilot, this is why I don't trust you. Like, I appreciate you doing this, but I need you to write valid code. Right? Like that. Oh, there's the closing one. Okay. And then now we need the namespace for our new behavior. That one. Take this. I think it's quicker if I just do this. Because then I can come here, I can come here, and I can just go up to the top. Because these two are in the same namespace. Oh, dang. I'll scroll manually. I want that. I come here. I want to put this up here at the top there. Actually, I don't know that I want to put this at the top. I think I want to reference it there. I think I actually want to reference it here. Then this guy becomes have header control behavior. Boom, boom, boom. Then we're just going to get rid of this for the moment. Need to do the data or the tab control. Yeah, that's what I was hedging, is I didn't trust you to do this right. Because you did the wrong names. Copilot, no one likes you, and why? This is why no one trusts you. Lie. Okay. File first. Was it not interactivity? Did I, huh? Am I an idiot? Can't eliminate that as a possibility. Oh, interaction behavior. That's what I did wrong. I think it's been too long since I've done my beloved WPF that I've forgotten all the names. Okay. Missing namespace. Oh, are you going to be unhappy about declaring it lower? Probably are. Okay. Well, as is the custom, make it work, make it right, make it fast, in that order. Get you compiling, and then we'll worry about the data grid reference or tab control. Need to quit saying the word data grid. Okay, build succeeded. Huzzah. Huzzah. Tab control. And I think I can just do template binding. I think I can get away with this. Okay, so let's grab it here, and then we're going to grab it here, and we're just going to rock and roll this sucker. Let's see, line 41, end of 40. Let's see. Oh, yep. Yep, that it is the end. Either one, it'll still compile. But you're right. 41 should be pulled up. Thank you. So you have a heck of an eagle eye, JC, for my mistakes. What are we throwing on? Let's see. Template binding markup extension must have property set before provide. Oh, okay. Okay. So we can't use template binding here. We have to do binding. Let's see. Relative source. Play the parent. That's what I'm looking for. So we can go there. We can clean this guy up here. Rinse, repeat. Because template bindings get evaluated. Tile time is not that. I wish I could see mine. I understand how it goes. That's always why you get somebody else to proofread for you, because you never see your own mistakes. It's so much easier to see somebody else's. Okay, tab control changed. Great. I assume old value null, new value set. Okay, great. That did what we expected. On tab changed, and I'm assuming old items is going to be empty and new items is going to be set to the first one. Yeah, so this is effectively the opening of a tab control, going to tab 1. Um, how does one get better at coding without reinforcing bad habits? That is an excellent question. That is an excellent question. So I guess a handful of answers or things that I might say. One, I don't know that there is a single right answer because of the developers that I mentor, they all get better in slightly different ways. So I think the getting better is going to depend a little bit on you. One of my favorite questions to ask people during an interview is, how do you learn best? And I don't really care what the answer is, but how somebody answers tells me a lot about them. One, it tells me if they have enough self-awareness to know how they learn better. Like when I was in university, that was one of the most useful things that I had a professor teach us is they went around and they helped all of the students in the class basically figure out how they learned best, and then effectively said, now that you know how you learn best, use that on all your other classes. Right? Because some people are audio based, some people need to read it, some people need to sit on it, some people need to have like a break between ingesting information and going through and doing it. Some people they only learn kinetically, that like it has to be kind of like hands-on doing type situation. So one, I think it depends a lot on there. And then I think the next thing is understand what is a bad habit, because there are some things that people call bad habits that I think are real subjective. So people have probably seen those memes where it's kind of a bell curve, and you've got the real entry level person on the left side of the bell curve, and your senior wizard engineer on the right, and then usually at the top of the bell curve you get the people screaming the most about insert flame topic here, right? And the premise being that like the one that is coming to mind now is where it's basically the junior engineer and the senior wizard both have are both saying write simple code, and the guy in the middle is espousing dependency injection and all of these layers of abstractions and uh, clean code and onion layers and all of this stuff, right? And at both ends of the extreme spectrum, it's we'll just write really simple code and don't do that. And so I think the first thing I would say is be careful what gets called a bad habit, because sometimes what gets called a bad habit is something that you go back to doing once you reach that other side of that bell curve, right? Like what the joke with all software architects is the answer to every question is it depends, and then making sure you can say what it depends on. But that idea of sometimes simplicity may not necessarily be a bad habit. Now, I think the key thing, and you may already be there based on the fact that you're asking the question, is if you are on the lookout for things that might be bad habits, the biggest thing I would look for is anything that short circuits your learning. Um, and right now I think AI is the biggest one. JC, have a good one at work. Because AI is a very powerful tool, and I see people use it to learn and improve and get better, and I see senior engineers use it to just crank out lots of code, and that's good. But that same tool can also be used by a junior engineer to crank out lots of code and short circuit their learning, and that's just going to hurt them in the long term. So I wouldn't necessarily say just don't use AI or anything like that. I think you absolutely need to use it, but make sure that as you are coding and trying to learn how to code, that you're actually learning it, right? And again, this goes back to the beginning of how do you learn best? Of anything that causes you to short circuit your learning is probably not a good thing. and is probably something that you want to get out of. And the problem is short circuiting your learning often feels a lot like cheating. Uh, fast fa- or fast 96. Thank you for the follow. Anything that short circuits your learning will get you something done quickly, and sometimes that's okay, right? Sometimes you're trying to get something done and out the door, and so you do the quick and easy thing. But be on the lookout for things that cause you to not be learning and advancing, because that's what's going to hurt you the most long term, right? If you're on the hunt and keeping in your mind that you're worried about, is this a bad habit, or not, anything that cuts off that learning. Because the other big thing is looking for the difference between good and bad code, right? And what is good is kind of subjective, because it depends a lot on what the problem state is that you're working on, right? Like we build a lot of like line of business apps, and in a lot of cases, it's taking some data from point A and putting it into point B, right? And we sometimes do things, I shouldn't say sometimes, a lot of times do things in a very simple way that we know straight up wouldn't scale to thousands or tens of thousands of users. But we don't care, because in a lot of like line of business applications, it's like, we're not going to have that many users, right? I don't need to worry about horizontal scale. Single instance is fine. This is a low impact thing. We can do that kind of. So knowing those things, I think, is being on the lookout and being able to evaluate what is good and what is bad. I think oftentimes is what separates somebody from like a mid-tier engineer to a senior engineer. Let's see. I would classify myself as a mid-level dev, but don't know how I learn best. And while coding, I try to make as few changes as possible and make the thing work. But that might be bad practice. Okay. So step one, I would say go back to the last thing that you can remember learning, and try to figure out how you learn best. The other way that I've seen people do it is the next thing that you're going to try to learn, do things in different ways, right? I tend to, so me personally, I can learn quite a bit by listening. And so it's very easy for me to turn on a video or something and just listen to it while I'm doing something else, and I can retain a decent chunk of the information that's coming through. Now, sometimes I'll have to pause if it's highly technical or something, or really dense. I can't get away with kind of the background listening. But for me, oftentimes I can take things in audibly and retain it quite well. Other people, that's just not possible, right? And I don't know that it's like, oh, well, you learn auditorily, like clearly you should never be kinetic with hands on the keyboard. No. You definitely do more than one, because there's plenty of studies that show that when you're engaging more parts of your brain, more sticks, right? But I think pay attention to what it sticks better than others, and then look at what the mechanism was that made that stick, right? Because it will help you to know which way makes you learn best. As far as making as few changes as possible to make the thing work, that's actually generally better. In a lot of situations, especially in industry, people will strongly push for having small commits, small pull requests, because the fewer changes you make it easier for somebody to review, and kind of what you commented there, this fewest number to make the thing work. It's also, if things don't work, or when they start working, you usually understand why, right? If you make a huge swath of changes and then the thing starts working, it's like, well, do you know which of those changes caused it to start working? Sometimes the answer is, I had no idea. I changed like 5 things. So systematically changing is, I think, maybe the better guidance I would give, so that you know what change or what set of changes got the thing up and working. Yeah. So I think, to summarize, pay attention to what sticks as you are learning things, and what to try to figure out what type of learning works best for you, right? Because I think this is, like I said, with the devs that I mentor, like I've got one engineer I mentor who's very much a needs time to process on his own, kinetic, hands on the keyboard. Like, we'll talk, and he's like, great, I need to go do, right? It's like, great, that's fine. Go do, because he needs that processing time. He needs to do it for himself. Sometimes he's like, well, I'll wait to ask you a question because I want to struggle a little bit, because he knows sometimes that little bit of struggle ahead of time is good because it causes him to actually have to think through the process, and he really likes that, right? Great, fine. That's he knows what works well for him. It's like, perfect. As long as we're both on the same page on that, we go well. So again, figuring out what that looks like for you, and then I wouldn't stress too much about what is good practice versus bad practice, but focus on being able to evaluate the pros and cons of code being done in two different ways. So what oftentimes happens a lot is with you open up a pull request, somebody else on your team comes in and reviews it, and they have feedback. And oftentimes their feedback is, well, I wouldn't have done it this way. I would have done it this other way. And that's fine. But what I usually tell my team is the reviewer is always right, or at least the reviewer wins ties, and it's the burden of the author to justify their change, or they should switch to do it the way the reviewer suggests. And sometimes I have to eat my own words on that, because it's like, I don't like their way as much as mine, but I can't justify why mine is better. So I guess I have to make the change. Like, again, this is definitely a Kevinism. This is not an industry thing. This is very much a personal one. But having that idea of being able to evaluate two different solutions, what is different or better or worse about one or the other, because oftentimes that's where the stylistic debates come in of which way should we do things, right? Like, people who can evaluate the pros and cons of a solution tend to be the good engineers. And oftentimes two people can look at it. I've got another engineer on my team, brilliant engineer. We don't always agree on what the correct solution is, but we typically agree on what the pros and cons of each solution are, right? This approach is better because of X. This approach is better because of Y. We at least agree on that. And then after that, it's all subjective about picking which one, right? And I think getting yourself to the point where you can be at least in agreement with anyone on your team about why something's better, or what are the things that make one choice better or worse than another. Yeah. So Izzy, I'm so a hands-on learner, but I also have an inverse bell curve for project progress. 3 main points on the curve: 1, make it work; 2, make it right; 3, make it perform it; 4, ship it. That's totally fair, right? Like, sometimes that shipping it is the hard one. And then also 3 reviewers that disagree with each other. And that does happen a lot. And even on my team, where right now our problem is we've got too many seniors, and senior engineers tend to be more opinionated, which is totally fine. And I think the important thing is everyone agrees on why one solution might be picked over the other. And then then you can get into the less objective things of, like, if we can all agree, hey, objectively, this is better if we have more than 500 users. Okay, well, we don't have more than 500 users, so do we need to do it now? Well, here's the cost if we don't, right? And so we can start to have those types of discussions, and I think that gets you in a better place when you can do there. Let's see, I also struggle asking for help. Everywhere I've worked, asking for help has been strongly discouraged. Ooh, I am very, very sorry to hear that. I am sorry to hear that. That is somewhat disappointing. And I wish I could say that it wasn't common, but I do hear that story quite a bit. The one thing I would say is sometimes there's a little bit of wisdom in the tact of how you ask. I often tell the developers that I mentor, I don't care how many questions you ask me. I care about the kinds of questions that you're asking me. Because figuring out the right question to ask is oftentimes half the battle of getting people there. And sometimes, like, if one of my mentees comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm struggling with this problem. I tried X, I tried Y. I was looking online, I was asking AI, and it kind of came up with these solutions, but I don't really understand this part here because of this." Like, that I love to hear, because it shows that they spent a bit of time trying to solve the problem on their own. Um, and then more importantly, they spent enough time looking at what they didn't understand to know what to ask. Right? There's the principle of rubber duck debugging. So if you don't have a human to ask, like, I have ducks, like literally actual rubber ducks. And that's part of what, so by being on the stream, you all work as my rubber duck as well, except for some of you talk back, which is helpful. Don't get me wrong. But me talking through even this tab control problem of my thinking, some of the reason why I'm talking out loud is because it helps me figure it out myself, right? It's a way of forcing yourself to articulate what the problem is and what the unknowns are, that it kind of forces you into thinking through the problem. And there's a lot of situations where having that kind of discussion and talking, like, it feels weird, right? People always tell me, they're like, I don't know how you can get on a stream and just like code and talk for several hours. It's like, without talking to anyone else. It's like, I know it feels weird at first. It feels weird talking to a duck at first. But so when in doubt, if you need to, take the duck into like a private room or somewhere where nobody will hear you scream at it. But talking through what the problems are or what the unknowns are, and getting yourself to a place where you're really clear on which things do you not understand, or backing up and saying, okay, what are the assumptions that I'm making, and how could I either prove or disprove them? So, for example, earlier this week, I had a teammate come to me. We've got an ASP.NET Core app. It runs in .NET Aspire. Love .NET Aspire. Oh, I didn't plug that. I'll plug an event here in a moment. And as part of Aspire, it spins up a bunch of containers, because we've got databases and Azure Write for storage accounts and all these things. And he specifically was running into this issue because his storage container, like, Aspire was showing it in an unhealthy state, but Docker was showing it working. Everything else seemed to be working, and the only thing we could get to was that Aspire was causing a health check failure for an unknown reason, saying it couldn't connect to the port. And so we're trying to diagnose and debug, and ultimately I just kind of took a step back and I started just verbally out loud going through everything I thought I knew, and tried to verbalize what assumptions I was making and how I could check them. So it was like, okay, we can see that the container is starting. This used to work. When did it break? Right? Do I know when it broke? Well, no, because there's been like a bunch of changes that went in the last 12 hours. Okay, well, let's revert back earlier than 12 hours and see if that makes a difference. No? Okay, well, we're pulling down this Azurite image. Let's see. Could the Azurite image have changed? Well, we weren't pinned to a version. We were using the latest tag, so it could be that there's a new image tag. And so we just kind of started walking through all of these things. Ultimately, and I'm kind of ashamed to admit it, the fix tended to be a reboot the computer, which was really frustrating, really bloody frustrating when that fixes it. But we did go through quite a few steps of, okay, could it be this? How do we test that? Okay, well, if that's not it, what else could it be, right? Like, and going back and just iterating, what do we know? And given what we know, what possible problems fit the information that we got? Let's see. My rubber duck has its own padded room so it can bang its head against the wall. I don't even doubt that, Izzy. Let's see. I just wish I could employ people who can identify different cables. I had a guy yesterday who couldn't find a network cable and asked me if a USB cable would work. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah. I initially thought I wanted to go to school to be a network engineer, and so like even this last weekend, I needed some Ethernet cables, and so I got my tools out, grabbed my RJ45s. I'm like, just make some cables up. It'd be fine. So it's fun. So I know just enough to be dangerous, not enough to actually do it for a living. How can I go about finding a mentor if not at work? Is there like a service or something that does it? Ooh. I don't know of a service that I could recommend. I'll put it that way. Um, I have seen different services out there, and I'm hedging a little bit because I don't know enough about them, and I don't want to necessarily steer you for or against without enough information one way or the other. Um, there are ones out there, and it depends a little bit on what type of thing you are you are looking for. Um, the so something that my employer does that I think is good. I don't know that our implementation is great, but the idea is good. Is they do what are called professional development plans. I jokingly refer to them as not a performance review because performance reviews are what most people are familiar with. Um, but the idea is for people to somewhat figure out it, like jokingly, it's what do you want your 5 year plan to be, right? Like it's more complicated than that, but it kind of comes down to a little bit of what, like, given that you're asking the question, I can assume that you are looking to get yourself better because you said about a mid-level engineer looking to improve. Murky and Squiggly, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. The I think what I would say is looking for um, a mentor may or may not be the right thing that you're looking for as much as depending on where you're looking to grow, right? Of the idea of where do you want, what type of thing do you want to be doing, right? Because one of the things that I ask my mentees is kind of what is their goals, because some people they are in the job because they have some hobby and they need a way to fund that hobby, right? And that's a very legitimate reason, right? They don't do it because they enjoy coding. They do it because software engineering pays pretty good and it can fund insert thing that actually makes them happy. Totally fine, right? I code because coding is fun and I love it. And so I'm just lucky enough that my job and the thing that I find fun overlap a lot, but not everybody is that the case. And so I think it may be worth considering what is it that you are hoping to get out of it. Is it advancement because you want the self improvement of becoming uh, a better engineer, or is it self improvement in the advancement of something else? And there's no right or wrong answer here because I think each person's a little bit different of what they are going for. Um, but yeah, so like I wish I had a better answer for about your question on finding a mentor. Um, there are some, like, even at my work, there are some people, like we've got some engineers who their mentor isn't a technical person, which is kind of a people are like, well, that seems weird. It's like, well, but the point of the mentor, at least where I work, is not necessarily to teach you a bunch of coding or technical stuff. They certainly can in a lot of cases, but it's oftentimes more there to encourage you to A, put together a plan, and then B, be someone holding you accountable to push you in that direction, right? Now I just want to get to senior level. Yeah, so I might ask you though, real big deal. what about senior level is what's pushing you for it, right? Is it the desire of wanting to be at the senior because there's extra pay, title, etc. that come along with it, or is it in search of other things on top of it? Hey, Jared, good to see you. Long time, buddy. It's been a while. How you doing? Um, yeah, earning money for the family to spend. Yeah, and again, Izzy, I think for a lot of people, that is actually the answer, right? They go into tech because it pays well, and what they want is to provide for their family, and so this is the end goal is providing for the family. This just happens to be a real convenient means to reach that end. Hasten, let's see, off topic. In WPF, is the absence of a selected indices property and control like listbox, list view, unlike WinForms, related to the way collection view works? Yeah, well, I'll actually show it to you right here on the tab control. It's related to how the underlying one works for virtualization, and that's why my comment earlier about the where is the it's not the generator. Items container generator. It's because of virtualization. The Because you have a backing collection that has a bunch of things, but the the indices are often tied to the container. So like in a list box, each object is wrapped in a list box item, which is the container. In a virtualized situation, you may only have 10 containers for 1,000 items. And so knowing the selected indice all you have to work with is that collection of items. And that's fine if the collection is distinct. If the collection has duplicates in it, there's not a great way to get the selected indices because all you have is a collection. So your backing data is just a collection. And so if I say I've got my backing collection, say a list of ints, right? If it's the numbers 1 through 100, it's real easy for me to figure out the index of any given item. But if it's the numbers 1 through 100 and I've got 500 items in my list, I'm going to have duplicates. If I get the number 42, how do I know which indice that goes with in a virtualized situation where the list item container for that 42 is not tied to it and is being recycled? So it's a sort of in that situation of why it doesn't exist. So yeah, indirectly around collection view, but more around the fact that the virtualization exists, and so it becomes more difficult. My multi-select tree view, there's been a couple attempts to try to go through and add like selected items and selected indices to it, and it's, I think, possible, but it requires basically maintaining a second collection that keeps track of when items come in and out. And it's actually kind of what I'm scared about with this, is trying to figure out the right way to get that index. Is not like this is going to fall over as soon as I have a duplicate item in the collection, right? Because again, if I had 3 instances of the number 42 and I was binding that list to my tab items, this is not going to be an accurate representation of which item it is. We're going to have to do something a little more interesting, but that's part of why I wrap this up in a function, is because I know that I'm going to get there. Jared, better than I deserve. I think that is true for a lot of us, buddy. I think that is true for a lot of us. Let's see. Real big deal. I have been working without a raise for 7 years, and I figure if I were to become a senior level, a raise would have to come with that. I'm getting told you're doing good, but we have a raise hiring freeze, so we can't give raises. Even though I'm the only dev on the project, I facilitate all the QA work as a subject matter expert, project manager for the whole program. And their legacy application. Dang. Wow, that is quite a bit. Let me circle back to that real quick because I think there's a longer answer there. Hessen, if the items are reference type, then duplication is not a problem. It's less whether they're reference versus value types and more about if there are duplicates. And I phrase it that way intentionally because, for example, a record class overrides the equality operators. And so you have to figure out, when given a reference. The default thing to do is to use equals to figure out where it is, right? This is the problem with like hash set. Even if I have a hash set of um, object, right? Uh, stuff, right? If I put two objects into this hash set that their equality operators register them as equal with the same hash code, they're going to show up as duplicates, which is why I'm kind of phrasing it generically of if there are duplicates, because value types are easy to pick on, like 42 for an int, right? Reference types are less likely to have that problem, only because they oftentimes don't have their equality operators overridden. But because record classes are a thing, those by default have value-based equality, not reference-based equality. And so it's much easier to get into a situation where you have duplicates. So, I've seen in an app, if you're building an application, you can certainly go through and implement things that keep track of your indices or similar, if you know that the collection that you're going against isn't going to have dupes. Like that, it's not that difficult to deal with in that situation, because you can make an assumption because of knowledge about your domain and that particular collection. For a library author, I'm real hesitant to do it, because I try to make as few assumptions on how my library is going to be used as possible, because people, as soon as I do something like that, I will get an issue of somebody going, "Hey, I'm doing X." Like, dang nabbit, dang nabbit. So real big deal. So there's a couple things with that. One, in general, I would say that kind of situation seems somewhat problematic with potentially a company or a culture. With that said, in tech right now, there is a bit of a bubble where there are a lot more people. So, and I just to clarify, I am speaking as somebody in the United States on the West Coast. What I'm about to say is potentially very region specific. So do with that what you will. There is a lot of people in the job market, and so it is not uncommon right now, especially because, we've seen Amazon, Microsoft layoffs, all in the last 6 months. And so there's a lot of quality engineers in the job pool. And so some people it's driven down the cost of engineers. With that said, what you're describing there, like, the cost of an engineer is not their salary. The cost of an engineer is how much it would cost you to replace them. And especially if that engineer has, say, subject matter expertise, or process knowledge, the cost of replacing that engineer is the cost of finding someone else and then training or giving them enough time to learn all of that tribal knowledge or expertise, right? So it is not cheap to replace quality engineers, and some people get this wrong and they just look at an engineer and just assume that their dollar amount is their salary. It's like, no, or their compensation package, depending on how it's set up, right? But it's like, no, the cost of an engineer is how much it's going to cost you to replace them, which you've got hiring time, there's HR stuff, there's oftentimes some amount of like IT or whatnot to get their stuff set up. Like, the cost of an engineer is how much it costs you to replace them. And that is oftentimes double their salary, triple, depends on how much they know and where they're at. So on one hand, I don't want to bash your employer too much to say, that long without a raise, like 7 years without a raise is a kind of a long time, unless you're kind of at the top end of pay bands, right? Sometimes that happens. You get to the top end of a pay band and it's like, well, we can't reasonably pay you more while you're in that pay band. And I think that may be what you're describing with wanting to get to a senior level, because that bumps your pay band one up, right? But 7 years without change is kind of a long time. I think the average, again, West Coast, United States, what I'm saying is potentially very localized. Don't assume it applies globally or any of that stuff. Oftentimes, at least around here, like A 3-year mark is kind of the point where if something hasn't happened, people start looking to jump jobs, right? Like that's just kind of the way it goes. Is if you've because some people are like, well, it should be at least every year. It's like, well, it's nice if it is, but there's enough market factors and other things going in. I'd say that's potentially a little too optimistic at times. Again, depending on where you're at, your company, your situation, all that factors into this. But usually, like, you'll see people's tenures on their resumes, and it's not that uncommon to see people bouncing jobs in tech every 3 years because they were able to land themselves a raise or a title bump by changing roles. And I think some people have wised up that it's cheaper to keep their engineers rather than making them leave to get the pay or the title that they need. But sometimes that is how people advance very quickly, right? In tech is they take their learning and experience. The company they're at was like, well, we can only do, a 10% raise or whatever, right? And so it's like, well, yeah, but I can get 30 if I jump ship. Okay, well, you got to consider other things beyond just straight compensation. Is it worth doing that? Because that's like I do see a lot of resumes from people where that is how they did it, is they jump ship a lot. Now, it's not always a good thing on your resume to see somebody jumping jobs every 3 years. That tells me that the person gets bored easily, and if I don't keep them well compensated, well entertained with stuff, they're probably bouncing on me again. So it's not always a good thing because it can look bad on your resume if they see a bunch of jumping without reason. But that is kind of the norm that I see. And at least from your description there, it sounds like you probably have a decent amount of knowledge on both the problem domain as well as the business processes around all of it, to where I suspect the loss of someone like you to the company would be significantly more than whatever your salary is. So I don't know if I helped that much. Like I said, it seems like a potentially a poorer situation than what I would say is ideal, but I would also say that the thing that you're describing, I can't say the grass is greener on the other side, right? It's like it doesn't sound like a great situation, but again, I don't have enough details to actually know for sure. Okay. Where wasn't I? Right. Items, container generator, and testing. Tab control changed. Oh, right. We actually saw this thing come through. I want to disable breakpoint for the moment. Yeah, so I've been applying, but can't even get interviews. So I can't really leave. Is there something I can say in like a performance review to kind of push them to raise me? Let's see. Currently getting paid around 80, working in multiple stacks. It's a lamp stack. Microsoft. I'm looking to get like 95 to 100. So this advice, take it with a grain of salt because it depends on what's valuable to the company, right? Where I work, one of the ways that helps push people along a lot is, and again, some of it's, who you talk to, what you do, but people who are looking for more advancement often are looking to take on more responsibility or lessen the load on their boss. So one, I guess, tactic that I've seen people do quite a bit, because we work, so the company I'm at is largely a consulting firm, professional services. And so I go into bigger companies. And oftentimes, one of the things that gets the best positive reception is if whoever is the decision maker or the boss or similar looking to lighten their load by saying, hey, can I take over this responsibility from you? Can I do this? And then leveraging that in a performance review to say, hey, I've taken on these extra responsibilities. I'm doing some of the work that would need to go in there, because sometimes if it's just looking for that advancement, sometimes the advancement comes in more forms than just straight technical, right? Some people operate under an assumption that to go from junior to senior engineer requires certain number of years of experience. I don't completely agree with that. Um, I like there's something to be said. I think people need experience, but I don't think I can measure it in years. I think I measure it in like actual experiences that they've gone through, right? If you've never shipped an app to production, that's an experience that you probably need before moving on to being a senior. If you've never dealt with scalability problems, well, you probably need some of that type experience under your belt before I'm going to push somebody up a little further. So sometimes asking to take on responsibilities, especially if they're responsibilities that can lighten the load of a decision maker, um, it it can help in a performance review to be able to do it. And so, yeah, problem there is I'm over leveraged, so I don't have time to take on anything else. Um, yeah, measure it in ability and knowledge. Yeah, Izzy, I think ability, knowledge, and sometimes that knowledge comes in the knowledge of hard knocks of things that have gone wrong. Um, yeah, yeah, real big deal. I don't know that I have a great answer of where to go. In terms of just straight salary amounts, um, it may be worth like I don't know if your company does any sort of like comparative salaries or similar. Like our company every few years will go out and look at what people in different roles are making in our region because again it cost of living is very localized, and they'll try to do like pay if we're behind they'll try to do pay adjustments to try to make sure that we're staying competitive with what rates are supposed to be, because like in the last 5 years it's been all over the place. uh, so it's like if that is if bumping up the rate is important, maybe a little bit of research on comparable jobs, even if you're not getting called back in for interviews, um, if the jobs are listing the pay ranges of things that you think that your experience aligns with, that can sometimes be used as I guess leverage to say, hey, this is I'm effectively doing this job. This is kind of the pay range for somebody with this type of experience, even if it's not, because I think sometimes companies do respond well to the idea of, hey, I don't want to have to leave to go somewhere else to get a different job, but this is kind of what I'm seeing in the market of what somebody with my skill set would get paid. I mean, that may be something, again, that doesn't always fly at every company, so use your best judgment with that one. Because that one can absolutely go the opposite direction at the wrong company. But at a minimum, it never hurts to know what you're worth. That is never a bad thing. Okay, so that obviously didn't work. Feels like it's going the wrong way. Did I get my ternary backwards? I click the 3 and oh, I wonder if my scroll is happening first. So let's go here, and I'm curious. I'm curious if I could just. You know what? I wanna get some logging output because this is one of those areas where breakpoints are problematic because they cause the debugger to steal focus. Oh, I was gonna plug one more thing. Um, .NET Conf. we got a .NET Conf event. If we go to the .NET conference here, we go local events, and I go here and I search for Spokane. My company is putting on a local .NET Conf event. There is a fee for in-person. We're doing food and whatnot. For online, it's free. So for people who aren't local, this is free and online. You can see kind of the stuff that we have going here. It is kind of cool. I'm talking, and this is what triggered my memory, because my talk is on .NET Aspire and using it to boost your productivity. Because we've now used it on multiple projects where I work, and I think it is an absolute gold mine. But yeah, we've got Ben giving a talk on Visual Studio kind of tips and tricks, how to get better. Dan on some machine learning, and then we've actually got a Microsoft engineer who's local, Gareth, who's going to come and talk on some Copilot extensibility stuff. Yeah, if people are interested, feel free to sign up. We'd love to see people there. January 13th. And then Pacific time for those people who may not be local. So convert this from Pacific time to whatever time zone you are in if you're going to do online. See, last question. If you were looking for someone fluent in multiple stacks, someone who has run builds and has experience I mentioned, what would you say they are worth? So there are three things that my company looks at when we are interviewing someone and hiring them. There is ability, aptitude, and attitude. We had to name them that way so that we could say they were the three A's. So if the words seem a little weird, that's why, because we will absolutely make puns. The reason I'm hesitating a little bit is the skill set you listed covers the ability portion of the equation. The other two are aptitude. Is we try to measure how fast we expect somebody can either learn tech or come up to speed on new things or otherwise. So if you imagine a graph, ability is, how far up the graph somebody is, and aptitude is the slope of their line, right? How quickly are they going to climb? And aptitude is obviously very subjective and a bit predictive. Because oftentimes we try to look at what somebody's done in the past and try to factor in things like, hey, maybe they didn't learn a lot of new tech, but they were at a place where that wasn't really an option. And so like that kind of factors into the equation of, well, they weren't really in a place where they could. So that's hard to tell. And then attitude is, as I describe it, how much friction there's going to be along the way, right? Because if somebody's not teachable or otherwise, I don't really care, right? There's been we joke about it because there's been a handful of people that we've hired that like we can kind of graph them on a chart, and occasionally we will take somebody who's high in two of them and low in one because of a specific need. But ideally, we don't want anybody who's low in any of the three, because we'll take mid-tier, like 3 mid-tiers on each is awesome when we find it. We love it if we can find somebody, if somebody has low ability but high aptitude and a good attitude. Oh man, that is gold. If you have high aptitude and a good attitude, I don't care where your ability is at. It could be down at the bottom because I can work with that. If it's down at the bottom, that means you are a piece of clay that we can shape and do exactly what we need and make an awesome engineer out of you. But to answer your question, I will predicate this in my area, so Pacific Northwest. If we were looking for somebody with say multiple stacks, right? Somebody who could work in both, say, a LAMP stack. I think you also said a Microsoft stack as well. Getting in there, especially somebody with QA knowledge. If that QA knowledge is more than just manual testing, and actually includes any amount of like automated testing, UI testing, any of that stuff, that absolutely adds into it, as well as if we see, because I've got faces in my head of particular people I've worked with over the years, plus somebody who also can do project management, meaning they're more than just an engineer. They can talk to product owners and they can take what a product owner is saying and synthesize it down into actual actionable requirements that a dev could act on. I don't think I think 100 is very reasonable, or like I somewhere in that range. I mean, 95 to 120 would be very easy, depending on where the person's ability actually lies, right? Because the other thing is I've also so the range gets wider the more names I put in my head. So I'm going to stop putting too many more names in my head, because I have worked with some people who were senior level engineers, had all of the right qualifications on paper, and I don't think they would have been worth 50. Like because the results that they output, like they knew there was one particular engineer knew all the Microsoft stack, prior employer even at one of the big FANG uh, prior employer was one of the big FANG companies. They had worked on a few big projects, like all the right technologies, all the right experience that you would expect, and yet the output of the products were things that cost the rest of the team years of development time to undo and fix when they finally left. Like one could argue it may have been a negative number. Like it was. So there is a little bit of the skill set listed on a job listing is a starting point, and then I think a good interviewer then tailors things down based upon how well the person has done, right? Because some people look good on paper, but when it comes to implementation or otherwise, it's difficult. And some engineers I've worked with are absolute jerks and difficult to work with, and that absolutely factors in. Again, there was one engineer I worked with, really amazing ability, could learn things incredibly fast. The guy was brilliant, like arguably brilliant. Kind of prickly when it came to the attitude portion. Like, it was nice enough, but it was one of those people always kind of went in with soft gloves because they didn't want to anger him. So it was one of those. It's like, oh man, like you could be so amazing, but and it was one of those, like, I got along with him great, so it was fine. But there was plenty of people where it was like, maybe like we're butting heads a little bit, and this isn't working out well. So yeah, so I think more specifically, going back to your question, I think asking for 95 to 100 is potentially reasonable, given that skill set, predicated on your area. Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Right. Override on attached. That's what we're going for. Did I already override on attached? I did. That's why it's not showing up in my list. Ha. Yeah, I knew I was going to need it. I just didn't know why. So associated object. Zir. Oh, real big deal. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Hopefully, like, and I think people who have been on my stream a bunch before are probably familiar with this. Please feel free to throw questions out. Like, I do not mind rabbit trailing on questions and things that people find interesting. I come in most of the time with a pretty open-ended idea of what I'm streaming. Usually I've got some code bit that I want to accomplish, but I do happily take questions, requests, and otherwise. So let's see. Engablade. Oh, sorry, I missed your cowbell comment. Are we ever going to get more cowbell? Love it. My most recent job interviewer went over my GitHub commits. I didn't get the job not because of the quality of code, but because my commit message were like, I fixed something and this thing is burning trash. Interesting. Yeah, for people looking to apply, I often and this happens a lot because the company I'm at, we teach at a local university, and so we get a lot of university students that we are at least coming through our class, and we will usually do even just like practice interviews for them, even if we aren't hiring, just to give them the thing. Some of the stuff that we tell them to do is get their GitHub profile set up, because on GitHub, if you make a repo, and this is worth everybody knowing, if you make a repo that has your username as the repo name, so for example, my username is Kaboo, and I have a repo Kaboo. So if you make a repo under your username that matches your username, your README actually gets put up as your, so this README here then shows anytime I go to my profile, it builds this out here. So step one, make sure your profile actually has the stuff you want to care about and show. And then we usually tell them to pin repositories that they want an interviewer to look at, of work that they've done, of things that they are proud of, and ideally on each of the repositories, for things that aren't runnable, the thing should have a README. Like in this case, this is a .NET templates repository. It's not an app that you run, but there's a README outlining what it is, how to use it, going through and showing all of the needed commands, so that if somebody were to look at it, it's very easy to have them go through and do. So if you are looking to apply and you are going to put your GitHub repository on your resume, or your GitHub profile on your resume, I would strongly encourage people to do this and, review it. Yeah. I'm going to bed because it's 2 a.m. Yeah, no problem. I understand. I stream at a really horrible hour, especially given that my target audience is English-speaking developers. So yeah, have a good one. Real big deal. Great to have you. Feel free to come back. Angel Blade. My commit messages are horrible, and I don't commit my code well. Some of my stuff is overly complicated, and most of it is useless, but I had fun. Hey, you know what? That's kind of a good attitude in some ways. I like that. I have been getting lazy because now so many things have AI generated commit messages. So every time I feel the urge to write like a real short and sweet, I don't care what the commit message is, I usually just click the AI button for, hey, AI, just write this for me. Otherwise, I'm going to write something crappy. You're going to write something slightly less crappy. It's not going to be great, but it's going to be less crappy than what I was about to do. So, that's better. Let's see, scroll changed. Because this is what I want. I want this. And we're going to dump this sucker out. Hey, stop it. Stop it. Stop helping me. Let's see. Don't implement with Copilot. No, Copilot. Bad. Bad. Not what I wanted. You don't know what I'm trying to do unless you can read my mind. If I did that, people would know I didn't write it. That is true. I will say, though, at one point in time, because I love leveraging GitKraken to write my commit messages for me, in their preferences, they have these instruction boxes. And I'm trying to remember exactly what my prompt was for my commit message generation. It was something like, effectively make the most clickbaity title, go heavy on the emojis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it did exactly what I asked for, like over the top level, marketing-ease, emoji heavy commit message. It was great. I loved it. I committed it, and then opened the PR, and it got the exact reaction I was hoping for. It got my PR looked at almost immediately. They're like, what the heck? I was like, but you looked at my PR right away. They're like, yeah, I saw all the fire emojis. I had to go see what you had done. I was like, perfect. The manipulation worked exactly as intended. Let's see here. So I think I just want a debug write line. Oh, Copilot, you actually did the thing. Let's see. Horizontal viewport width, extent width. Yeah, that's probably pretty good. I have an image to maintain. Very fair. Absolutely fair. Um, and I will just mention for anybody who isn't aware, um, GitCon is GitKraken's conference coming up next week. It is free. I am speaking at it. So if you are at all interested in stuff, even though it's GitKraken's conference, it's more than like it's not just Git related stuff. It's effectively, I'm trying to remember how they marketed it, like a builders, people who build stuff. So I always have a good time. So it's worthwhile, and it's free, and they give away cool stuff. So free to sign up, and you might get something cool out of it. So that's probably worth it. Okay, so I want to go, and I want you to be like this, and I want my output window where I can see you. That way I can keep an eye on you. And then I want to, when I click here, so the interesting part there is there was only the one. So those 158. So if I go here, there's only one horizontal scroll occurring. So it's not like there's two happening. That's interesting. Why would... So let me go here. And then I want to put a breakpoint here. Because I had an assumption... Oh. I had an assumption on how this was going to work. Is this one went to 328. Go here. I'm at 328. I'm moving backwards. So I'm going to push my scroll bar 52 to the side. $328 plus 52 is not 42. Which tells me something else is coming in behind me and adjusting the scroll port. Because I'm willing to bet if I look at this thing is Q. Yeah, it NQs a command. That's okay. So someone else is NQing a command. Ah ha 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 ha. So that's what's likely happening is mine's coming through. And then where would the other one trigger the scroll from? Let's look at... Okay, so something else is triggering a scroll, but I've got a scroll handler. So if I axe mine, I can grab the scroll changed from the other one, and we can look at its call stack. Let's see, I've used AI a few times in projects, once to write a README for document for AI endpoints for a service application written in ASP.NET C#. Didn't feel like explaining how it worked for other people. A few other times to generate icon images because web searches for icons sucks. Yes. Yes. The other thing it's really good for, let me grab it. So I did the user group talk I did on Tuesday, which I will drop the link for if anybody wants it again. So if you're interested in my talk on what's new in C# and .NET, there's the user group talk. But the one thing that it was ridiculously useful for was generating pictures of squirrels for use in a talk, because what everybody needs is Christmas squirrels. Not all of these got used because some of these are frankly kind of terrifying, But you know what? AI was great for generating squirrel pictures. So there was that. I will say though, I do use it quite a bit in development stuff. I don't I feel like it's hard to use it on stream because my ideal setup for using it, I am running multiple screens and switching back and forth, and it's kind of chaotic for people to follow. So I don't feel like it works well there, but if you see me crank out a bunch of commits when I'm not streaming, it's probably because I've got AI just ripping through stuff. Um, Today, Copilot was horrible for me until about an hour before I was scheduled to be done, and then it decided it wanted to be amazing. I do not understand. I do not understand. It was great, and then it was not. Okay, I want to get this to where there was something. There was here. Yeah, so I want to be here maybe. There. Really what I want to do is I want to get it partway through and then figure out where the scroll event comes from. Does tab complete count? Because sometimes I do that as well. It depends, but yeah, if you've got the Copilot tab completion set up, 100%. I I will absolutely use it. That's the hard part. Like specifically with GitHub Copilot, there are so many different ways of interacting and getting into it, right? Like it's easy to say, oh, well, look, you've got the client, right? Like, and you can interact with it there. But then there's the CLI, there's comments, there's the inline suggestions, there's the inline edits as well. There's the profiler agent. Like there's so many entry points. And I think right now it's prolific enough that because I think I said it before, is my assessment is that AI is effectively going to become like source control, where we question developers who don't use source control. I think we're going to at some point reach a state where we question developers who say, "Oh, I never use AI for anything." It's like, really? Because there's some tasks AI rocks at, right? Especially if it's look at this pattern, do this thing over for me a few hundred times. It's great at pattern replication. Like it does that good. So like some things lend itself really well to that. So I think we will reach a state where people will question engineers who say that they don't use it for anything, the same way that we would question engineers who don't use it for um, who don't use it who don't use source control for their code, right? It's like why not, right? Like I mean cost may be a reason, but I think other than that there's not a good reason. Yeah, Visual Studio Enterprise, so yeah, Copilot built in. Yeah, it's great. Like I use it quite a bit, and specifically, I will say the Claude models. I for .NET related development, the Claude models I have the most success with. So I am often running Sonnet, or Opus has actually been quite good for me. Let's see, Izzy just set up my work Christmas present. Check Discord. Oh no. Oh boy, what did you do? Um, not sure the screens are big enough for me. Wonder if I need a dual normal monitor stand behind it and have two big screens above. Oh, those are cool, Izzy. For people wondering, it's side by side monitors for a laptop. I've got a set that I use when I'm traveling as well that I bring. I actually got them right next to me. I keep them in this kind of big, tough case so that they travel nicely without me worrying about them. But especially when I'm on the road, having them where I can set up and have multiple screens going is invaluable. I have to have it, and having something a little stronger like that makes it all the better. Um, yeah, I'm just starting to use it, but slowly. I host the model locally, so I don't really have a limit on usage, and I'm not paying for it. That's great. Yeah, if I remember right, Angel Blade, you have insane local compute power. I vaguely recall you telling me at one point about your local setup, and most people, I would say, don't run models locally. It requires a lot of juice. But if I recall correctly, you have the juice. Which if yes, correct idea. Yeah, yeah. In your case, you're probably fine. The average person doesn't. Okay, so I wanted to look at. I want to grab it here and see where. It's going to be a little hard because I want to grab the queued event. So we're going to try one. I guess no. We're going to grab it here first and see what we see. So there. Okay, where did we come from? Scroll changed. Event args. So we came through there, and this is going to be a lot of outside update layout. So the hard part here is I want to grab it, but I don't know where I want to get it because this came through the layout changed on layout updated, which is the callback. And I think I actually want to know the NQ. Let's see. Let's disable just my code. And then let's see if we can catch it at the point I queue. If I click here, it's not going through the NQ, which is problematic. My next stop is a suitcase size flight case for my setup. Yeah, if I could take my 42U rack with me in the car, I'd be happy. Maybe I need a big van instead of a car to have a mobile command center. Oh man. So there's a couple people. There's another consulting company that we work with quite often where they've got a bunch of high-end engineers, and a couple of them legitimately have mobile command centers. There was one engineer in particular. He technically had a place of a permanent residence so that he had a mailing address because he had to have a physical mailing address. But the vast majority of the time, he would spend it in this mobile home that he had outfitted, and he loved travel, and so part of why he was a software engineer is because he wanted to travel, and so he would go from place to place to place, and he had a heck of a setup for mobile connections, right? Like he had his Starlink and his mobile uplink connections, and oftentimes he was planning out his routes to make sure that at appropriate times he was at the locations he wanted to be at where he knew he would get good service. And then on days where he wasn't working, right, that's where you go and visit, the national parks or whatnot that you've just spent your time driving right up next to be able to go. Yeah. I need something like the RV and Meet the Fockers. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, so this guy is coming through, and if we try to do this scroll here, the scroll viewer is trying to help us. I wish I knew which event triggered the NQ. I can maybe I can snipe it out of here. Because in this case, left mouse button down is actually what's going. But that's not triggering anything. That's not it. Because something on query scroll command. Not quite. Like I am really tempted to wait, queue up, and then execute. The problem is I can't just watch for the tab to change and then queue an event waiting for this to fire because it may not ever fire. Because if two tabs are visible inside the viewing window and you're just clicking between them, there's no scroll change. So then the question is, how do we get how do we know? I guess we kind of know if we're going to be moving off. Like we could figure out if we need to scroll into view. Let's look, because if we know whether we need to wait for the event or not, that actually gives us a lot of power. Let's see, is visible, is scroll to end, because again, what I really want to do is just bring into view, but I don't know that that is what I'm going to get. You know what? What we can probably do is this. Again, make it work, make it right, make it fast. This is make it work. Associated object, dispatcher, begin invoke, and then we're going to do one of these maneuvers. And then we're going to set the dispatcher priority down lower. Because I think if we go here, let me look at this. Loaded, rendered. I'm thinking we can just set our thing at like background maybe. I think we can do that. Because I wonder if we do this, and then we let this guy go here. This is obviously wrong if we don't need to scroll, but we are going to not worry about that. What we want to know is if we assume that we need to scroll, will this do what we need? Because I know we can get our way through. See here. Okay, turn that breakpoint off because I don't want to look at you anymore. You are ugly. So if I go here, and then I'm going to get my output window ready so I can watch it. I'm going to clear you out, and then I'm going to come here and I'm going to go click. Interesting. So it did the horizontal scroll, and then it went back to 0. Okay, so we need some more output. Let's see. Scrolling 2. R2 offset. All right, so we want to do this, and we want to go, let's see, 2 offset as scrolling to, let's see, 2 offset, and then from, and then we will just grab the associated object, horizontal. Nope, that's alignment, horizontal offset, because I'm not as dumb as I look, and then we try again. Because the fact that that showed 0, kind of interesting to me, considering we should only ever do plus or minus 52. Like I'm surprised I'm not. I'm surprised I'm getting anything other than something that differs by 52. I would expect. So let's move this guy up here. Clear all. We're gonna go here, and I go. Let me bring this down a little bit because I do realize I'm not printing out which scroll viewer, and there's quite a few on this page. I go here, scrolling to negative 13.68 from horizontal offset. So it makes sense that it would go to 0. Is my ternary just backwards? Okay, hold on. Am I an idiot? That is a legit question. Let's grab our snoop, and I want to just grab this scroll bar, and I am going to move it manually. Gimme. Gimme, 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 gimme. You slide over. This is one of those areas where if I wasn't streaming, I would leverage all of my monitors. But that, unfortunately for you guys, that doesn't work well. Let's see. Angel Blade. I'm hosting a 400 gigabyte MOE coding model. I get around 30 tokens a second, which isn't bad. It's 5.4 plus Sonnet plus GPT, 120 billion smushed together, which makes it weird, but it works. Yeah, that's not bad. Like, so my opinion is like I love the Sonnet models for coding. I use the Phi models quite a bit when I don't care about creativity at all and I just want something done. Because the Phi models are, I find like even a Phi 3 model is fairly good at if I just needed to do a mildly intelligent task and not be too creative, the lack of parameters it's not bad for going through and getting something done. If you're wanting to do anything creative, I think the Phi models are not good for that. But if it's like, hey, I need you to classify this thing for me real quick, it's fine. Like especially when you care about small and fast. And then GPT on there, which I assume is there to just round everything out. Actually, it's actually not bad getting all of that through. Like that is the hard part. For me, I spin an Azure Foundry instance and I run them in the cloud because I do not have that kind of compute power locally. Yeah. It always likes to write documentation likes um so the but you said you're running GitHub Copilot, right? Cuz there's a couple things I'm actually giving a GitHub Copilot training. Unfortunately, it's internal. Otherwise, I would offer to share it for a client coming up in a couple of weeks. But I think I've got our. Sorry, I'm looking real quick. I think I've got a video here that might be helpful because we did a. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not live. Um, I have to go looking for it. We did a. Oh no, here we go. This one. Copy link. Uh, so I'll apologize for some of the quality bits. It's a little dated now because it is a this was done several months back, but yeah 5 months ago. But it does cover a lot of some of the basic stuff of leveraging Copilot. The other things to look into are the custom agents. Formerly, the feature was called chat modes, but they improved it and rebranded it. Um, and then also making sure that you've got either like your agent's MD or a Copilot instructions. Oftentimes, will get you much better results because you can tailor it down and tell it to like don't write doc files, right? Unless explicitly instructed. And like the custom agents, I've been starting to build them for uh, common tasks that I want to do, where it's, hey, do this thing. In fact, I think I have one I can share in this. Yeah, Izzy, fire away. Sorry, I'm just gonna look real quick. I can't remember if I put it in. Must not have put it here. I must. So there's. I've been working on a Blazor template, and I think I have. Let me go look here. This is because this one is not done and not ready. Do I not have it in here yet? Hmm. I thought I had a chat mode one that I had added in, but maybe not. Specifically for things like update all my dependencies, right? Which is generally something fairly simple, but I've got some Copilot instructions that basically boil down to things like use the NuGet MCP server for finding all of your latest versions. If it's already on a preview version, I want the latest preview version. I also want you to rev all of my .NET local tools in addition to the NuGet packages. I want you to run tests and build and make sure all of those work and fix any issues that come through. So it does a lot of the mundane rev all my package stuff for me, and it does a decent job of getting it either all the way done or done for me in a lot of cases, and usually without me needing to go back and change too much up. Because most of the time it's fairly straightforward. When there are breaking build changes, it's usually somewhat obvious. One that always bites me is we snapshot test our open API docs. And like I got bit by one earlier today because I use NSWAG to generate it. NSWAG puts the version number as part of the generated thing. Now I could go through and exclude that first line from my snapshot test, but I've been too lazy to do that. And like the AI was like, "Oh yeah, I got you. It's just the version change. Boom, boom, fixed, done. Test pass." So it can specifically building out those kind of custom agent mode things. You can make your token usage more efficient. Um, let's see. We have a company policy that demands adding company copyright statements to the tops of all files, and I keep format. I keep forgetting and get my PR rejected. Yeah. Let's see. Is there an easy way to make VS add mandatory text to the top of every source file? Sorry, thinking on this. I think the answer is no. But however, um, there is you can customize and do a new item template. So the company I was at where I had a similar problem um, is we spun item templates. And if you're using JetBrains products, this is significantly easier than the Visual Studio ones. But you can make item templates that have the copyright or whatever the thing is that they want on top of your file. And so it doesn't make VS automatically add them, but typically you only need to add it when you're creating a new file, and you can change the new file template so that it gets put in there. Where this will fail is if you're using like the refactoring tools to say, hey, pop this class out to its own file, because then it never triggers the template, right? And that one will bite you. But it may be better-ish. Question. I don't. There may be Visual Studio extensions that do things similar. I've seen enough companies with those types of things. It would not shock me to find that somebody has built something for doing that. That would not come as a shock. Okay, let's see here. Bum. Okay, and then we are going horizontal offset. Okay, so if I bump this up to 50, just want to make sure I'm clear. That didn't move the scroll bar in the least? No. What happens when I do this? Content. Oh. So I'm an idiot. That's the problem. Ooh. See, this is why we did it there. Okay. Oh, this is not horizontal. Oh, that's so dumb. Right? Because what did my Snoop just show me? My Snoop just showed me 804. So yeah, the event args property is called horizontal offset, but the that is brutal. But the property on the scroll viewer itself is content horizontal offset. Apparently not to be confused with horizontal offset. Okay. Okay. Probably can get rid of the viewport width and extent width. I don't know that I'm going to care about them. Okay, so let's go here. Go here. Okay, so get you out of my way, Snoop. Get you out of my way. Okay, so now we come up here. We're gonna collapse this, and then click. Scrolling to -13. So is so to go right, I need to increase my offset. So is that true? If moving forward, oh, so I have this backwards. Okay. Rinse, repeat, try again. Though I am, though I guess that makes sense. If I am calculating incorrectly, boy, I kind of wonder if I'm going to end up. Izzy joked earlier about making my own scroll viewer, and unfortunately, that joke is now scaring me because I do wonder if it might be a legit thing. Okay, let's inspect this. Okay, so I am there. I click there. Oh. It's working. Now, it's again, it's obviously wrong if I click a middle one, but it is actually it's sort of working. It's sort of working. Where I get just enough space. I feel like the because I set it at 52 of the device independent pixels, and that I may need to adjust that, but it is actually adjusting and moving and doing all of the things that it needs to. Okay. Okay. So the first question being, so hold on, this works. So we have a thingy. Save point is important. Issue, and then we're gonna throw this up because I don't think we're finishing this tonight, but I know this was something Nikolai was gonna work on too. So I'll throw it up. If it's useful to any of the other maintainers, great. If they think I'm an idiot and they want to do their own thing, also great. Don't know why it keeps it, probably because I set the drop down. We're gonna add the behavior in there. And oh, we need to go fix the comment because I wrote it backwards. If we are moving forward, we leave. Oh no, this is correct. My implementation of the comment was wrong. Okay, that's fine. AI, do your thing. Do your thing, AI. Impress me. Thank you. Okay, so we'll push that. That way it exists and it's not just in my little thing. Okay, so the failure points at the moment are we don't know if we need to scroll. For the case of we click on a tab that's already fully visible, right? It's already got enough padding on each side. We don't need to do any adjustment to it. Because the material design one, when you have right, close. If I go all the way to the top to their usage one, right? If I click on 2, it just selects tab 2, right? There's no, oh, that's the fixed one. Let's try again. But again, tab 2, tab 3, right? There's plenty of space. It's basically just the selected tab, ideally, based on direction, needs to have that padding around it, or at least inset that far in so it's not right up on the edge. Right? That one's fine. Just a little shift because it was too close. And there's that one there, right? And the scrolling behavior is a little fast. Okay. Or at least in WPF, it's almost instant, and theirs is much more animated. The question becomes, what is the right way to add these things in? Because we've got the scrolling, and if we the deferring also gives me a little bit of pause because I'm reliant on timing a little bit of making this thing come through at the end. Um, and I probably should do something like if tab control dot selected item not equal to new tab early exit, right? Because we're queuing this up, there's a real chance that some other change has occurred. And so if we get the call back and we are not currently the selected item, we should just bail. Because that's no bueno. Okay, so can we do better than you and hope? Because that is, I think, one of the ones that's going to bother me the most. Now, do we have a way of knowing if it's visible? Because I think do we need to scroll, right? Because I think we want to queue always and then adjust. Because we're reliant on the built-in scroll viewer to do something, I don't think we can check ahead of time. I think we have to check in the callback. So associated object. But what exactly does bring into view? How does it know? Does it just trigger? Is there like a routed event or something that it triggers? Request bring into view. Request bring into view event. Scroll viewer must handle this. Routed event identifiers created, which are these identifiers created by class handlers. I am willing to bet, and I want to go look at this on source.net. I am willing to bet there is a register routed event. Great. There's the event args. There's the handler. I'm just surprised that it's not doing it. Let's see. Is it cold there right now? Yes. Well, it is not cold in my office, but it is definitely cold outside. We have been getting hit with snow a bunch this week. So yeah, that's been all kinds of excitement. It was my work's Christmas party tonight, and was my wife and I are driving back from it. There's just snow coming down, so I'm not looking forward to tomorrow morning. It's gonna be. I have a strange feeling I'm digging my way out. This I expected to see this request bring into view. I expected to see this inside the scroll viewer. Is it? Is it not in here at all? Do you not deal with snow a lot? It depends from year to year. Last year was really mild. Like, I've got a snowblower because there are years we get there are years we get tons of snow. I don't know. The most recent one I can think of, probably about, I don't know, 11, 12 years ago. Um, there was enough snow. One of the guys I was living with at the time, he drove a little Honda Prelude, which only stands about 4.5 feet off the ground, and we had the snow piled up on either side of our driveway from shoveling to where he couldn't see out when he was backing out. Um, yeah, I love snow. It's why I own an all-wheel drive vehicle. I like parts of it. I do not like the cold part of it. That part always bothers me. I do not like it when I am wet and cold. That is always yucky. I do not like that. I do enjoy driving in it when I'm not dealing with other drivers. Like because I every winter I go out and I'll find myself like an empty parking lot, and I will, practice throwing my car into a slide and then breaking the slide and rinse repeat, because like my driving philosophy in the snow is you're going to slide. Quit driving like like you can avoid sliding. Drive expecting to slide and prepared to handle it when it happens. Right? Which is why I go out, I practice. Like, I want to know exactly, how far I should anticipate my car sliding, what it's going to take to break it. But yeah, currently it's -7 here, and then there are 12-mile-per-hour winds. Oh boy, no, no. I've got you beat by probably 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Like, I think I think we're cold here, but I think we're at like 27, not like -7. That's too much. That no, no, that is a level of cold that is bad. Okay, see, I was right. Scrovier does handle this event. Oh. Oh. This gives inspiration. This is a class handle. Yeah, I got an idea. I'm a behavior. I could get myself in the middle of this. I could get myself in the middle of this. So, okay, testing theory. I think what is happening is the automatic scroll is. I probably left something bad. This whole queuing garbage. What I think is happening is when you click on the tab item, it is probably pushing a request bring into view routed event that goes up, gets handled by my scroll viewer, and that's the scroll event that then gets queued up for the next layout pass, which is why I'm having to do this dispatcher garbage. However, I think what I can do instead is I can trigger this thing myself. I think I can hijack this event. Yes. Um, I think I can cheat this all day long. Rex, make visible. What does this do? Get rectangles. I content host. Let's see. Just get an all-wheel drive X-Cop sedan that weighs 2.5 tons, has tons of power, 3 batteries, and a set of tire chains, and it'll be fine. Yeah, yeah. I've never been stuck. Yeah, see, I like I do enjoy driving in it, and like because I've just got a full set of studded snow tires because it there are times I've got family over in Montana, and so it's about a 5 hour-ish drive over two passes, and that is obnoxious. And there is snow and ice, and dear heavens, I do not want to be stuck. And so I very much have had to learn how to practice driving it, and so that's always fun. And like I said, I actually enjoy throwing my car into a slide and then breaking the slide. Like that is actually fun. You do need to make sure you've got a parking lot with enough space where you're not going to hit anything. That's important. Um, Great way to mess up your vehicle if you screw that detail up. But it is fun doing the slides. And there's been a couple times in my life where I'm fairly confident that because I go out and practice that it has saved me from being in accidents. Because there was once I was driving with my brother. We were headed down a main road. It didn't even seem that icy. And all of a sudden, like we spun, was it one or two full rotations? I think we did 1.5 rotations because I ended up on the side. Like it was good that there was no cars coming at the time because I ended up into oncoming traffic. But on either side of us, if we had gone off the edge of the road, was a very steep hill that would have not been great. And it was, whew. You want to know the funny part of it? The temp swing here between summer and winter is insane. It goes from -15 average in winter to 100-degree average in the summer with humidity. Ouch. Ouch. So basically, anyone who lives there is either comfortable with massive temperature swings or hates part of the year. Because that sounds like you're going to anger people on both sides. Ooh, the content host gets the rectangles. Oh, I wonder if I could get the. Oh, could I just be the content host instead? If I could be the content host and I could return the rectangles for the child element, I could determine. I could add in the, yeah, pure Michigan. Ooh boy. Ooh boy. Yeah. Dang. Yeah, we get at least 2 months of great weather with people on the Great Lakes, and it almost makes up for it. Yeah, my wife is from Ohio, and so she misses being back in that area. The biggest difference is the out here it's just all evergreen trees, and she misses her deciduous trees. So bad here. We have a mini desert. Oh, dang. Ugh. Find content host. What does this do? How does it get the content host? Can I be the content host? Oh, wait a minute. Check out Sleeping Bear Dunes. Oh boy. Oh boy. Here real quick. Just because I don't know what's about to come out. Oh. I mean, I'll say this. That actually looks rather pretty. Because I assume it's something of that nature. Those are steep. Like, that's. You get a workout going up and down sand like that. Oh boy. Yeah, like that is a very steep drop off. That does look nice. I assume this is somewhere in your vicinity, Angel Blade. Oh, back. Content host. So it's going to feed the element. The mini desert that takes up the whole top left of the lower part of the state. Ah, wow. Don't think I. That's so disappointing. I don't think I can be the content host because it comes from the element itself. Is going to be very, very difficult. Oh, that's. I don't think I can get myself in there. If I can't be the content host, content element. Well, but the content element's what gets passed in. Could I fake this? Because it's got a target object. Yeah. I mean, the Northern California and like in that area, I think that's not a horribly bad one. Like the area of because I'm in the western part of Washington and we are very much desert. Um, like there's a lot of desert over here. Like even though we're the evergreen state, like we're the evergreen state because we got pine trees everywhere, but there is kind of a desert in the middle of the state in there, which but it's more of like your dry, not happy type deserts. Wondering if can I hide you? I feel like there's an injection point here. Like if I can grab the object, I can specify the target object. Oh, does it use target rectangle? Wait a minute. Does it use the target rectangle? So it doesn't fall down here if child is a visual. Oh. If child is a visual, it just falls into here and goes make visible with the target rect. Oh, this might be easier than I thought because it enqueues the command with the rect into. Oh, let's see. You're on a plateau, right? I don't think it's a plateau. Look, I don't. I don't. I mean, if I can grab a topographical here. Um, so, let's see. Need to grab this. I need to grab this. I need to grab this, and I need to do it in an unauthenticated browser so it doesn't pull in extra stuff that I don't want to show. Like this is my vicinity here. So if we zoom all the way out, Washington State, this kind of desert region down here. Like we are an evergreen state, but you'll note where the green is. It's over here. This side, not so green. Like there's green, like, and I'm up in the Spokane area ish. And so like we've got green around here, but this whole area is kind of just big flat desert because we've got a handful of like larger rivers and whatnot until you get over to the mountains. And it doesn't get bad the further over you go. Like there's lots of several large lakes, and there's actually a very large underground aquifer that a lot of our water comes from, and which is great. We like because people will hear about like the droughts in California or similar. At least our particular area, that aquifer saves us in a lot of ways of being able to have plentiful supply of water. Plus, we've got the Spokane River runs right down through the middle of town, and like even when it's hot and we aren't running at flood stage. Yeah. Columbia Plateau, specifically the northern part. Yeah, that's what I was trying to imagine is where the plateau. It must be along here, I guess, of where it sits. Eastern edge of the plateaus where it meets the Rocky Mountains. So yeah, so these will be the Rockies coming across over here. Yeah, so somewhere in that vicinity. So a plateau, yes, but on a very big scale, I guess. Big enough that we don't really notice it because I have to zoom out to this level to see it. I think I can cheat this. I want to see if I can hijack this. Okay, so because I am grabbing this rocks and turtles. Not code? Or does the code just enhance the rocks and turtles? Let's see here. So if I wanted to grab this on this visual tree, where do I need to hook this? I guess is the question, right? Because if I know I've got an event coming up, right? I've got this guy here, and oh, I don't need a second one. Stop it. Let's go here. And I think what I can do is I should be able to find the request bring into view. Look at those. Menu item. One of these, because I'm willing to bet the mouse down event triggers the request bring into view, and that is what I would like to see come up. Because I want to see where it starts from, because I know where it ends. It ends at the scroll viewer who handles it. Tree view. Guess I could look here real quick while I've got it up. Request bring into view event. You must have where you declared. Framework element declares you. Okay. Let's see. Code is part of my work and play, so I don't have to really like it. But it could be a decent number 4. Number 3 has to be my wife, but don't tell her that. Smart. Correct. Some would argue that maybe it needs that she's supposed to be higher, but I understand where you're coming from. There are days I have been informed that I am too attached to my code. Oh, look at that. I got it. Quest bring into view. Content handled. Request bring into view grid. So the content control triggered it first. So let's see here. Where is that guy? That one's too high. Main scroll. One of these has got to be here because it feels like this is the opportunity where I hijack the request bring into view, and then I can control the rectangle that I want, and I can offset it appropriately so that it fits what I need, right? Haven't you ever wanted to monkey brain and play with rocks and turtles? Absolutely. There are days where, like, I don't know what it is. There's been a lot of engineers that I have met that have either retired or pivoted away from tech and gone basically as far the other way as you can go, where they go like rancher, farmer, like they go from high technology to I want to be off grid. I want a very simple life. I do not want anything fancy. Like that has happened multiple times. It's interesting the way this event bubbles up because it's like everything is grabbing it and then just rethrowing it. Because normally what you see is underneath one of these things, you see it bubble through the tree. But instead, it doesn't bubble. It just goes straight there. Yeah, it just. Which way is this going? Is it going? That's going up. So I want to be back here on the grid. That's all the way at the top. It's like some of these came out of order. Because these ones got handled. So it must be, this must be the innermost grid, and then it hits the main scroll viewer that marks it as handled, and then it bubbles all the way up. So that must be where it went, is it started down low. Starts here on the tab item itself. Okay, so the tab item triggers and it goes up. So the tab item is the one raising it. And if we were to grab it before it got, because it goes through the tab item, through the grid, all the way up before it gets to the scroll viewer, who then handles it. The event continues, but then it's handled at each step of the way, all the way up. Okay, great. So if it is at the tab item that fires this inside of here, we look down here, there's your tab items. And so if we grab it, because this is looking at the grid, there's the virtualized and stack panel. But if we go up to here, we sit in the middle. We sit in the middle. I wonder if the behavior registers who sees that event first. Is the behavior going to get an opportunity or is it not? All squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. I'm working on buying a farm right now. It's my retirement plan. Put 6% in my 401k with 5% match, another 5 into my stocks portfolio, then keep the rest for bills and such, then retire at 55, cash in what I can from the stocks and buy a farm and grow green beans and raise llamas until I'm able to get my 401k returns and just work on project cars the entire time. Like I said, I think there is something very, very much about tech that burns people into wanting to have something much simpler. Yeah, let's see, Izzy. My dream is to have my own self sufficient air raid bunker filled with tech. Something like the Resident Evil Raccoon City facility. Oh, man. Oh, yeah. Yeah, like I will admit, there are times where I kind like it, that idea makes a lot of sense to me. It's like, wow, feels definitely feels nice. Okay, so short version though, I think the solution here is going to be to grab a hold of the event. Because I think back to scroll viewer. Because I want to grab it here. I'm going to put this in my comments because I don't think, I have a feeling I'm about to run out of brain power. Try to grab the event and provide my own target element with a my own rectangle offsetting original one. I think that's the kicker. Is I think if we just grab the rectangle on the event, we could shift it out by 52 and then deal with it there. I think that feels like a potential solution. We'll shove that in. The next week, no stream. I'm gonna say this. Watch my Discord. I have a streaming channel in there that I try to post in for how little I post when I'm planning on canceling. That way, there's an obvious warning of it. I just need to figure out what the heck's going on with my family event next, because it may end up being evening and overlap with my stream, and I have a suspicion if I don't get back till 10:30 at night, I probably wouldn't stream. So I'm gonna go with, there's a 50% chance of canceling. I think that's probably where I'm at the moment. I gotta get that figured out. The problem with the holiday season right now is things are chaotic, and I don't like chaos. Again, back to that simple life. It does sound nice. It does really, really sound nice. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Hopefully that was interesting. It was good to get back and do a little more WPF, even if this was kind of turning around. Nikolai, since I'm sure you're watching the recording of this, if you go to take a run at this, I think that's where I would look next. So I'll post something in the thread that we had on this item just to see if, or maybe I'll just post a comment out on the issue in case anyone wants to take a run at it. But I think something of that nature probably gets us into that vicinity, maybe, give or take a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna recap through a handful of things for anybody interested. .NET Conf is the Spokane local event is coming up. So if you are at all interested in that, it is free for online viewership. If people are interested in what is new in C# and .NET, that YouTube link gets you to the recording of the user group talk from Tuesday. And then, let's see, GitCon is coming up this next week with me speaking. So, one, I'm selfishly thinking that it's going to be the best of talk at the whole thing, but I've got a biased opinion, but it is always a good conference. And if you do go, there's usually a feedback form. I would love it if people have feedback. That would be awesome. So with that, I will tell everybody happy coding. Thank you for hanging out. See y'all next time.